Namaste and greetings. I, Nikita Bhardwaj, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Prabhav एवं नीति अनुसंधान संस्थान, नई दिल्ली, extend my warmest welcome to you all to IMPRI #Web Policy Learning. Today, we are gathered here for Day 18 of Law and Public Policy Youth Fellowship, an online national summer school program, a 2-month online immersive legal awareness and action research certificate training course and internship program. This program is organized by IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, New Delhi. The chair for the program is Professor Vibhuti Patel, visiting distinguished professor at IMPRI, and the fellowship lead advisor and expert legal hands-on sessions is Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam, visiting senior fellow IMPRI. The distinguished experts include Sri Sandeep Chachra, Professor Vibhuti Patel, Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam, Advocate Dr. Vaida Nayanar, Professor Mukul Ashar, Professor Uday Shankar, Shri Udit Mishra, Dr. Nivedita P. Haran, Shri Bhartendra Singh Baswan, Dr. Purnima Chauhan, Advocate Dr. Albertina Almeida, Dr. Gladstone Xavier, Professor Aruna Roy, Advocate Audrey de Mello, Dr. Kaustav K. Bandyopadhyay, Advocate Mrinalini Deshmukh, Professor Sharmila Ghoge, Advocate Flavia Agnes, Dr. Rashmi Singh, Mr. Devaditya Sinha, Professor Swaran Singh, Advocate Lara Jasani, Professor Anil K. Gupta, Justice Ajit K. Singh, Mr. Himanshu Shekhar, Dr. Amar Jasani, Dr. Soumyadeep Chattopadhyay, Mr. Bilal Khan, Shri Rajiv Ranjan Singh, Shri Tikender Singh Panwar, Shri Shailesh Gandhi, Dr. Simi Mehta, Advocate Abdul Hafiz Gandhi, Professor Amita Singh, Dr. Ajay Gudavarti, Shri Amit Dubey, Professor Sanghamitra Acharya, Dr. Y. Suresh Reddy, Advocate Sanchita N, and Shri Surendranath Tripathi. The conveners for this course are Dr. Simi Mehta, CEO and Editorial Director at IMPRI, Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam, Visiting Senior Fellow, IMPRI, and Dr. Arjun Kumar, Director at IMPRI. I welcome you all to this enlightening deliberation and thank you for putting your time, energy, and efforts into truly understanding the vital role and complex intricacies of legal and public policy frameworks. This course will enable the participants to comprehend the nuances and technicalities of legal and public policy paradigms and therefore acquire theoretical insights along with technical skills to conduct research. We have also shared the course outline and reading resources document in your email for your kind perusal. We will be providing videos of each session for flexible learning at your pace and place. Before we start today's session, I would like to announce the housekeeping rules. It is imperative that you join the meeting on time. There will be a Q&A session after each presentation. Share your questions in the Q&A box and not in the chat box. The questions must not be posted as an anonymous attendee. Ensure that your questions are precise. Refrain from making general comments in the question to save time. Our session for Day 18 will cover topics of Housing, Laws and Act by Mr. Bilal Khan, Police System, Laws, Public Policy and Security by Shri Rajiv Ranjan Singh, Local Governance and Public Policy by Shri Tikender Singh Panwar. To start the session, I would like to invite Professor Vibhuti Patel for her opening chair remarks.
Yeah. Very good morning to one and all. First of all, I would like to express my heartfelt thanks to Dr. Arjun Kumar, Dr. Simi Mehta, Dr. Shalu Nigam, Ms. Sweta Shankar, Ms. Vithita, Mr. Satya Tripathi, Nikita Bharadwaj, Samriddhi Sharma for putting this very, very exhaustive course, which does the 360-degree analysis of all the important challenges faced by the 21st century India. Welcome, Mr. Bilal Khan, Dr. Rajiv Ranjan Singh, and Shri Tikender Singh Panwar, and esteemed participants. Now we have entered the 6th week. We'll be completing today 6th week of this important international school, with a vibrancy of inputs from India and other neighboring countries. We all started with the discussion on the philosophy and foundations of public policy and its intersection with the legal legislative framework. And we also had many discussions on the global instruments of international human rights and how it is applied, and India's responsibility or the responsibility of the nation states to implement this international instruments in their own local context. We also examine the political economy, how it impacts the public policy. and some of the important initiatives which have taken place in the Indian judiciary, the whole history of judicial activism, and how the legislative framework and the legal reforms in which for which media people's organization have played a very important role. Over last 1 week, you must have been reading about the reforms, so many social security and social protection measures taken by government of Rajasthan. So we had 2 illuminating presentation by Dr. Aruna Roy and Dr. Advocate Nikhil Day about the social security measures and how Mazdoor Kisan Sangram Samiti has played proactive role to realize right to food, right to education, right to information. It started with right to information and right to social security and social protection, and also income support in the time of crisis or the people who are in a difficult circumstances. We also had a very illuminating presentation by Advocate Audrey de Mello, who spoke about the 50 years of journey of Majlis and the women's movement in the area of gender-based violence, and what kind of support systems at a subnational level and the gender responsive budgeting that has played in providing support to women survivor of violence to rebuild their shattered life. We also had a very important discussion by Advocate Albertina on Goa Children's Act and also current debate on Uniform Civil Code. And Professor Shadmila Guge enlightened us with the nuances of Juvenile Justice Act, and also the Flavia spoke about her personal involvement in a whole process of legal activism and also providing support to violence. We also had several administrators who also talked about IAS officers, who we got a very good understanding on role of civil servants in providing developmental initiative and developmental support at a subnational level. We also are in urban governance. So 2 case studies of Kerala and Himachal Pradesh were presented by the people who are movers and shakers at the state level. And we also had a very interesting discussion on environmental laws. In fact, 4 or 5 presentations were on environmental laws and public policy, and globally and in India, what's happening. On foreign policy also, Professor Ranjan Singh, he gave a very lucid lecture. All the sessions of Dr. Shalu Nigam for the legal hands-on session, as well as the interactive sessions, were very, very educative, and it was very participatory. A lot of creative thinking emerged, and also we had a sessions on how to frame the research proposal, research modalities, research methods, philosophy, research ethics also were discussed. And now today we are going to have 3 important sectors being examined by the people who are working at a ground level in a housing sector, a criminal justice system, and local governance. Thank you very much, IMPRI.
Thank you, ma'am. The first topic for today is Housing Laws and Act. Before starting, I request Professor Vibhuti Patel to set the context for our session.
Yeah, I think these 3 are a very important sectors, because we know the housing rights for past 40 years. Person like Bilal Khan have given the best years of their life for fighting for the issues of the urban poor, because we know that in all major cities, in a megapolis as well as the tier 2, tier 3 cities, urbanization at such a fast pace is happening, which creates a lot of income inequality. If you read yesterday's Economic Times, it shows that in a post-pandemic world, income inequality all over the world has increased, and that manifests in terms of deteriorating quality of life of the urban poor. And in what way interaction of the state and non-state actors in terms of, and those who have benefited from the economic development, especially the Fortune 500 companies and the rich people, their responsibility. And I think that's what SDG also talks about, Sustainable Development Goal. When it comes to any social change or a developmental work, we also see criminal justice system plays a very, very crucial role. And with what side it takes, whether it takes side of brutalizing the people or those who are facing intersectional vulnerabilities, or it is empowering. We have had a very problematic relationship with the criminal justice system, especially the police, with the judiciary, and also with the way some of the draconian legislations have played havoc with the life of people. That what I think the lowering of the standard of environmental this thing happened. Now, in this context, the third topic also about the local self-government bodies. We know that India had a very important reform, a constitutional reform in 1994, where we had a 73rd and 74th amendments in the constitution, which allowed 33% participation of women in the local self-government bodies, which is now increased in more than 20 states and union territories to 50%. Now, and that way you can see the more substantive and the deepening of democracy has happened, but still we are challenged in a big way in terms of the physical infrastructure, social infrastructure, disease control, vector-borne disease control, the water crisis. All these are very important challenges faced by the local self-government bodies, because they are at the front line. Okay, the union government may have a central schemes for the union territories and centrally sponsored schemes for the at a subnational level, but that's it. The music has to be faced, all the challenges have to be faced by the state government, and the most important challenge is faced by the local self-government. So I think today's all three sessions are going to be extremely important for us to guide us as citizens and also in our research and advocacy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Next up, I would like to invite Mr. Bilal Khan, who will be taking up the session on the topic Housing Laws and Act. Mr. Bilal Khan is the president of Kamgar Sanrakshan Samman Sangh based in Mumbai. Welcome, sir, and over to you.
Mr. Bilal Khan, okay, now we are getting light on your face. Otherwise, there was light at the back. Your face was.
Yeah.
Oh,
thank you, first of all, to IMPRI, Dr. Arjun Kurma, Dr. Vibhuti Patel for inviting me, and congratulations for running such a successful, lengthy webinar series on such important topic of policies. Can I share my, is it possible can you allow me to share my screen? I have a brief presentation.
Yes, it's on, you can try, yeah.
Okay. So are you able to see that my presentation?
Ji, Bilal ji, you can go full screen. Slideshow mode. Yes, perfect.
Okay, so I have twisted a bit the title of my topic is I have put a question mark against the law, so I'm going to explain why is that a question mark. But before we begin discussing the laws and acts in the in India around housing, I would like to So I would like to first begin by building some understanding about housing as a right. So back in 1948, that when the Universal Declaration of Human Rights were adopted, in the Article 25, housing was recognized as a basic necessity, basic human necessity, and for a decent living standard. Later in 1966, International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Right again reinstated the necessity, the importance of housing as a right, and how it is important to have a decent life, and housing. It also linked housing with not something which is a four-wall structure, but something which is also important for facilitating livelihood. So that was that was housing was considered as an important necessity. Later on, the definition of housing was expanded, and today we call it adequate housing, which comprise of many elements, which include security of tenure. So I am speaking from the perspective of the looking at housing as a need of a poorest of a poor person. So these elements that comprise housing as an adequate housing. So security of tenure is important in housing. like there are communities in cities like Mumbai and all the metropolitans. Uh, Half of them in almost all the metropolitan, half of the population lives in informal settlement, which are also popularly known as slums. So these are in these settlement, the secure tenure security is not definite, and they live in constant fear of demolition and eviction. So from those experiences, this element has been added to the definition of adequate housing. That housing needs to be the tenure of housing needs to be secure in order to ensure a dignified and secure and safe life. Availability of services is also important because uh, just a four-wall structure is we can't call a four-wall structure a house until unless it is plus with all the basic amenities, including water, electricity, sanitation, access to hospital, healthcare. So that is also very important. Third is affordability. Affordability has remained as even though it has been included in the definition of adequate housing. This definition is a universal definition adopted by UN. So in which affordability has given a very generic definition, and it has been left to the state government, to the states, sorry, to respective countries to define the affordability. And unfortunately, in India, it has still not been defined. Even though there are committees which try to explain, give a definition of affordability, but in policies, it has still not been adopted. And so it is affordability has still remained still yet to be defined in India. Then habitability is also important. We don't want housing to be in a place which is non habitable for human habitation. For example, I would like to give you a very recent example. Uh, so like few years back, about 5,500 families were rehabilitated in a neighborhood which was toxic. And after their rehabilitation, about 300 family died because consuming toxic fumes because it was a industrial area. So later on, our organization and the local resident campaigned, and then we approached the Bombay High Court and also the National Green Tribunal, and both the like at both the level we got favorable order, and they recognize that just four-wall structure is not enough. We also need to create housing in a place which is environmentally sound, which is habitable, and hence they were directed to be shifted in a environmentally sound place. So habitability is another important factor that needs to be considered while making provisioning for housing. Accessibility is also very important. If we, for example, we have observed in many cases, uh, when government provide housing for poor people, they tend to create those housing complex in areas which are totally disconnected to the main city, especially disconnected to areas which are source of their livelihood, and hence they become it's of no use, and then they are forced to again come back to informal settlement in slum. And if housing needs to be in an area which is connected to public transport, where the resident have access to public transport, where the resident have access to education, the children can go and access educational institutions. It must have access to healthcare. It must have access to all the basic amenities. So that's about accessibility. And location and accessibility are almost the same element. Cultural advocacy is also important. We need to factor the local culture and practices and of the people, and that needs to be also reflected in the design of the buildings, because if those cultural practices are not acknowledged, then it might lead to many issues. So that's an important, another very important um, concept that needs to be factored and which are mostly ignored. So that's what we understand. That is basically largely housing for adequate housing. I don't know how many of people who are here have that if we have access to that type of adequate housing, but that's the ideal definition of um, housing, considered to be the ideal definition of housing. As far as India is concerned, housing still, as far as the legal provisioning is concerned, as of today, we only have a welfare scheme that provide for housing for the poor communities. It's a mission which was launched in 2015 by the current government. The objective uh, of the mission was to basically address the housing crisis, especially faced by the urban poor communities. Because why I'm mentioning urban poor communities and poor communities, because these are the one who are facing the brunt of facing the brunt of the housing crisis. Even though people from middle class also suffer from the crisis of housing in another manner, but poor are the ones who are denied dignified housing, and hence the main focus of my presentation is the poor are the center of the presentation of my presentation. So so, so the Housing for All scheme was launched in 2015. The objective was to provide housing to 1.5, sorry, 1.12 crore people. It was supposed to be completed. The objective, the target of the scheme was supposed to be completed by 2022, but today still has not been completed. I think it is still about 30 to 40 lakh housing units still remaining to be constructed. We will discuss later whether the target, even by achieving the target, whether are we going to address the crisis of housing or not. But I would like to explain the component of this housing for all scheme. So this scheme follow four major component which through which it intend to provide housing. One is the SRA model, which is popular in the state of Maharashtra, which use land as a resource. This is implemented in the existing informal settlement in the slums, where the private with the help of a private developer, they redevelop the slum community into high-rise buildings and use part of land to construct housing for poor, and the remaining part of the land to build commercial housing, so that they can compensate the investment they have put in building housing for poor. But this model follows the eligibility criteria, so in which a large number of people are not able to qualify for free housing. So this model provides, through this model, free housing is provided. So large number of people are not able to meet the eligibility criteria, and then they are left to fend for themselves, and they are at the end of the day just get evicted, and there is no help is provided. So that's one drawback of this component. Second is promotion of affordable housing through credit link subsidy, and third is affordable housing in partnership with public and private sector. So in you will see in both the component, it mentioned affordable housing. So as I just said, that affordability has still not been defined. We don't know what would be the actual cost of that affordable housing, for which government is going to provide subsidy in the interest rate of the loan. So so that's we are still not clear that who among the poor are going to get housing among these two, between these two components. And third is subsidy for beneficiary-led individual house construction enhancement. So this fourth component is applicable to people who own a piece of land on which they have built a house, and if they want to upgrade their house or enhance their house, they can get subsidy or financial assistance from the government. I think it's about 2 lakh rupees. The 2 lakh rupees financial assistance provided to enhance or upgrade your house. But if you and these are the components which are applicable in urban areas. But the last component is not at all cannot be applicable, cannot be applied in urban areas because as we know that since this policy is designed to provide housing access to the poorest of the poor, this will not the last component will not be applicable to them because most of them live, all of them, not most, all of them live in informal structure in slums, which are public land and not owned by the residents who live on those land. So they won't be able to get benefit out of the fourth component. So yes. So the question is whether housing for all, the target, even if the target of the housing for all, even if the target of 1.12 crore is met by this policy, whether still be able to address the crisis of housing, especially the housing crisis faced by the urban poor community in all the major cities in India, including Mumbai, Delhi, Kolkata, Odisha, in cities in Odisha. As like I just mentioned that affordability is not defined. So even if affordability is defined, there are people who don't have any purchasing power at all. So what about those people? So we need to also consider people who don't have any purchasing power. So have some provision these population needs to be factor. For example, homeless population needs to be factor. I have not in my presentation that I have not just mentioned about uh, problem faced by the homeless person, but I would like to just now because I'm just mentioned about homeless population, I would like to briefly speak about them. So for homeless population also, which is the most vulnerable, most affected population. Our government run homeless shelter program, but that is still lagging behind in terms of implementation and constructing uh, enough number of shelter. And Maharashtra is the worst, is lowest in the rank as far as constructing shelter for homeless person. Um, Another drawback of the housing for all scheme is the SRA model. As I said, it follows the eligibility criteria. So which means that some people, who are equally poor, because it is going to be implemented in a slum community in which most of them have the same income level. So some people with equal income level will be disqualified from getting the benefit of the SRA model, whereas some will get it. So what about the people who don't get the benefit of this component? Um, and lack of land ownership in urban areas. I just explained that how that will not be applicable at all uh, um, to people in urban areas. So that's the drawback of housing for all, which is a welfare scheme, which is non-binding. It does not protect your housing right. So that's another drawback as far as protecting housing as a right. Uh, talking about laws around housing, we have especially for urban poor communities, there is Slum Improvement Acts in different states. Uh, but even this law has some drawback. This is applicable in limited areas. For example, in Maharashtra, the Maharashtra Slum Act is applicable only on land that are owned by the municipal corporation and the revenue department, whereas land owned by the railway department, defense department, and even the forest department, it is not applicable. So this act is used to provide uh, upgraded houses, or you can say this act is used to redevelop the slum communities following the SRA model, which I just explained. And this under this act is applicable only on limited land. So people living on land owned by forest department defense and the railways, they don't get any benefit under this Slum Act. So, uh, so if you study it further, it does not, the main objective of this act is not to protect housing right, but it is to uh, uh, give benefit of rehabilitation to select few communities and clear the land for other development projects. So that's the drawback of Slum Improvement Act, that is somewhere related to housing as a right. Uh, then housing as a right in India. Uh, I just in the at the beginning of my presentation, I mentioned how internationally housing is considered as a right, but in India, based on uh, international instrument and convention and our own understanding, the Supreme Court and various High Court at different occasion has uh, 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 recognized housing as a right. Supreme Court has held that it is part and parcel of right to life. And in the Delhi High Court, in case of Ajay Mark and others, has asserted that right to housing encompass a bundle of right, including access to livelihood, healthcare, education, and food. So our courts have recognized housing as a right, but in reality, it is still. In reality, is in fact considered as a commodity. It means that even if you have got money, you just you buy it. If you don't, then these there are very limited provision, and for poor it's become even more difficult. So that's the situation as far as housing is concerned in India. Uh, and then so in fact, we have paucity. There is a lack of law which specifically treat housing as a right. As I said, it is today it has been reduced into a price commodity. As a result, poor are not able to access it, and they are forced to live in informal settlement, which are stigmatized and branded as enforcement, and hence they live in under constant threat of demolition. They and also continue to face demolition throughout the countries. We keep hearing of news when when major events like G20 or even for any development project, poor are the one, their settlement are the one who face the brunt of all the almost all the major developmental project. And because of the paucity of a law, it is very easy to get rid of those settlement and with very minimal rehabilitation. So, in fact, I've just shared. I'm just quoting what Bombay High Court had said in one of the case which we took to the court. This you will read that you'll see that the in this judgment, the name of the petitioner is unnamed girl child who was 13 days old. So this was the community I visited, and I saw that they were demolished. Their houses were demolished just before Diwali, and they had no place to go. And I saw there was a baby sitting in a mosquito, sleeping in a mosquito net, and then everybody was asking that how about this baby, where she will go and what can we do about it. So then we decided to approach court to find some protection for her, and then we made her the petitioner, and by that time she was not named. So the court decided to give this title to the petitioner, to the who was just 13 days old. And we demanded that so her housing right needs to be protected. So to which court examined all the documents and everything, and it finally it concluded the below is the text which reads like, for the present we have found and from the narration of the facts and the argument that a right is claimed to reside in such land only because it is not possible to afford any decent housing accommodation in the city of Mumbai. It is stated that we must take note of the plight of such person who move around the state, country, and in search of livelihood and decent living coming to Mumbai, but but their dreams are shattered as it is not possible to make a living except by unfair and illegal means. So court is also acknowledging that it is not possible. So court then concluded that it is the plight of such person and occupant which is highlighted. However, even to extend to such person any benefit or any assistance, there has to be a legislation or law in the field. So court is acknowledging that there is a lack of law that can specifically protect housing as a right. What we have today is some welfare scheme that through which government try to provide housing, but these welfare scheme, as we all know very well, that these are um, they are good during election to go the voters, but as far as delivery is concerned, they are not able to serve the purpose. And even it is believed that the figures like the objective of the housing for all is about creating 1.12 crore housing, but these are all made up, I believe, and many reports, for even many reports, it is believed that these are all made up figures. And if we acknowledge the existing housing uh, and upgrade the existing housing, we will be able to easily address the crisis of housing. And also by acknowledging housing as a right, we will be able to easily address the crisis of housing rather than ignoring housing as a right, or just constructing mere houses which remain not occupied or vacant for a very long time. So that's it. Thank you. If I am I ahead of my time, or if I have completed before my time, what is that?
Thank you so much, sir. I would like to request Professor Patel to share her remarks.
Uh, my first, this thing is a very important presentation, Mr. Bilal Khan, you have made. First thing is that most of the economists and most of the social scientists say that this urban problem of housing cannot be solved. Okay, so there is a Tina, whether you talk to bureaucrats, because even when we prepared the Mumbai Human Development Report, that was the one thing for which the poor were victimized, that it is why so much of migration, why big cities have 60% who are outsiders. No, so that kind of discourse used to happen. So in that context, can you suggest that other Asian countries like Philippines or Malaysia, or this, how have they solved the problem? Because everywhere urbanization is happening. That is number one. Number two, when the reverse migration happened, economy collapsed. So what are the learnings of pandemic so far as the urban housing is concerned? Because except for Kerala, no other state has a hostel for the workers. The workers were forced to go this thing. And third one is that now, which are the institutions which are working, and what is your evaluation of housing finance corporations that we have globally also in our country? Are poor housing for the poor on their agenda?
So, as far as the understanding about migration vis-a-vis the housing crisis, I think our development paradigm is such that which invite migration. It is a belief that 60% or the 50 half of the population of a major city is migrant. But I think if you look at it, if you look at the example of Mumbai, it is a city by the, I think, for according to what I feel is it is a city by the migrant, of the migrant, for the migrant, because we have just one community which is the original dweller of the city. The rest of the city, uh, is comprised of migrant. Um, uh, but those who are living in informal settlements are stigmatized as migrant, as temporary resident, whereas people living in informal houses are considered to be the uh, permanent resident. But in reality, if you look at the history, we are all migrant in such big cities. So that is one. So I think let us not get away by saying get away from our responsibility by saying these are not permanent members, so we don't have responsibility toward providing housing to these people. In fact, we should we should acknowledge that our development paradigm is such that we consider cities as the engine of growth. And if you consider cities as such things, then you should also create provision for people who are going to come to the city, and ensure that they live a life of dignity. Um, so that is that I think your first question was about around this. Um, and then there can be many. You mentioned about Kerala example, that it has the hostel for workers in Kerala, but that hostel is only for male workers, not for. It doesn't factor female uh, uh, as migrant, or maybe it does also not factor how they can also come and work and all, as migrant workers. So so that's the limitation of the hostel. But whatever is there is good. Like, at least they acknowledge that they are working towards creating housing for people who are coming, like a seasonal migrant worker or permanent migrant workers. So we need such type of solution in all the cities, because uh, cannot be housing as a solution. There can be many solutions to housing. They cannot be just one solution. The one solution can be rental housing, which the government is trying to push, but it has still not been defined. So that's one. Rental housing is one, so can be one solution. Then for their homeless shelter is another solution, which is still not been implemented. Then SRA model can be one solution, but what about people who don't qualify to get those housing? So maybe we should define affordability. So we have some, even our government acknowledge some solution, but those are not being implemented. So because I think it's not the priority currently. So there has to be these important issues needs to be considered. And third question was your third question was about the housing finance corporation. So that's I think the housing for all scheme also factor those institutions. And but as I said, affordability has not been defined. So as a result, uh, the poorest of the poor are not able to get the benefit of those institutions, because the subsidy provided is not enough, and hence uh, few among the poor community are able to take benefit of projects which are funded by housing corporation, sorry, financial corporation and banks. So there is some limitation to it.
What about the other Asian countries?
So
Malaysia,
best practice,
Indonesia.
if we talk about other countries, uh, the main problem is that we have still not considered housing as a right. We still look at it as a commodity, and that is why I think that's the main issue. So in Brazil, housing has been considered as a right. They have made a amendment in the constitution, and they have there is a law, there is a state statute which acknowledge housing as a right, and it gives ownership to people who have been residing on piece of land for many years. So they recognize their tenure, and as a result, and then their tenure is then they like all the individual units get title, and then that's how their houses are protected. Whereas in other Asian countries are still yet to recognize housing as a right.
Asian tigers have not done anything. Singapore, Hong Kong,
I'm
Korea,
sorry.
after the Second World War, like they are enjoying very high per capita income and also the better quality
Yes.
of life. Even they have not come up. The state has not come up with the housing projects.
I think China, Singapore, they have housing, but uh, the space and the quality in those public housing is not good. It's like it's very inhuman. Even though the from outside the buildings looks very good, but from inside the space is so that is not even enough for one person to live. So it's just space enough to just sleep. So that's not housing. That's not qualify as the definition of a house. That's something else. That's a cell.
Yeah. And I think now Kerala has used gender responsive budgeting because there is a 10% totally dedicated to women. From there, they have made hostel for women workers also. And there is a film called Equal Half, which made by UN Women, in which they have done the case study of this hostel for women workers in Kerala.
Thank you so much, sir. I request Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam to share her remarks as well.
Thank you, sir. It's a very illuminating kind of presentation, and we get to know more about so much about housing law. But this one thing, like earlier we used to have this judgments like Olga Tellis judgment, which talks about housing rights and the rights of poor. But right now, if we see the in Faridabad and in Jahangirpur, demolitions are happening, and even when the cases are going to the Supreme Court, the relief is people are not getting relief, and and mostly these are poor people, like since I'm based in like Delhi NCR, so I can talk about but it's happening in other states also that the poor are being deprived of their housing rights, and the courts are not helping them. The state is not helping them. We have bulldozer justice and all kind of things which are going on, and so in this kind of situation, what do you think should be done? And basically, more specifically in terms of if we talk about say the rights of the poor and the marginalized, even among the marginalized, say widows or poor women or those kind of women, what as policy makers, as law students, what can we do in such kind of situations?
Yeah, you're right. There was time when we used to get judgment like Olga Tellis, where court would acknowledge housing as a right. Even the judgment that I mentioned, these are all old judgment, about in the of the 90s. But over time, even the terminology of the court has changed. And instead of earlier, people who would live in slum, they were in the judgment. They were mentioned as residents of those settlements or citizens of those settlements of that city. But if you look at the recent judgment, their terminology has radically changed, and instead of recognizing their housing rights, they are considered, they are termed as encroachers in all the judgment, in all the whether it's Bombay, whether it's Delhi government, or sorry, not the government, the court, high courts only. They use the term encroacher. So I think stigmatization has started from there. When we instead of acknowledging their due rights, we brand them negatively, and which leads to stigmatization. As a result of stigmatization, their assertion to rights get diluted. They have to first fight their stigma that they are not encroachers. They are also, because they are also branded as other with other names, like for example pickpockets or criminals, or all kinds of names, even though in reality they are the service guild of the city. It is because of them the city is able to efficiently work and function. But when it comes to providing them with due rights and facility and amenities, our governments and judiciary try to shrug away their responsibility by just negatively branding them. So for people living in informal settlement, in order to assert their right, housing as a right, they have to first fight the stigma that they don't come from a criminalized community. They are all as equal citizens as others are, and then they can also talk about then they can talk about their right. So it's it's a like a double struggle, double battle for them. So I think I think we need a lot of sensitization. We need even sensitization of the policy maker. We need to start whenever any policy poor should be at the core, at the center of any policy making. Then only we will be able to, I think, deliver some justice to the most poor of our country.
Thank you, sir. The floor is now open for questions from the audience. The participants are requested to raise their hand in case they have any question. I think we should move to the next session if there aren't any questions. Thank you so much, sir, for the insightful session. Your expertise and knowledge in the housing area has truly broadened our understanding in it. With the chair's permission, I would like to move to the next
My
session.
pleasure.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Moving forward, the next session is on police system, laws and public policy. Before starting with the session, I would like to request Professor Vibhuti Patel to set the context for the topic police system, laws and public policy.
I think, first of all, historically, if we see the police system got consolidated and SOPs were created after the 1857, the mutiny, we would call it first freedom struggle of India. And the British rulers, they came up with the, first of all, Indian Penal Code, which is mostly, even in the post-independence period, Dr. Shalu Nigam would bear with me, that it has continued. There has been a movement for police reform for a long time. Social movements of the 70s, whether it was a movement of the women's movement or forest dwellers movement or Adivasi struggles or struggles of the Dalit movement, urban working class, all of them have also demanded accountability on the part of criminal justice system and especially police. Second thing which has come from within, so many scholars in the police academy, when I used to go for a training program for the young probationers, they were saying that what we need is that less interference in the police. Let us do policing because we constantly work under the pressure. So the political interference in the police force, that also has created major problem. The third one is the living condition and the workload on the police department. No, said that first of all, they work with the extremely poor quality of defense mechanism, whatever they have. Their workload is very, very high, and they don't have the kind of technical sophistry with which the army or navy or air force, they are continuously upgraded their infrastructure, which doesn't happen with policing. And in many, they are the ones who have to maintain internal conflicts and crises. And at that time, if they don't get this kind of sophisticated weapons, because in so many places, the underworld and the antisocial elements, they have a far more sophisticated defense mechanism rather than the local police force. So that is a third. And the welfare for the police, like we say, in between, like when some programs by Bollywood are organized or some philanthropic organized, they felicitate, or on the day of Rakhi, commoners, they tie Rakhi to the police officers and police constables. So that kind of attention at a tokenism is there. But when it comes to their, first of all, wages, their housing, their children's education, even the health facilities, I think a lot needs to be done. And police force is the first point contact when it comes to any kind of violence or conflict or any kind of a disturbance that you have in the society. So I think a lot of new thinking that has happened is around these issues of this thing. And the question of corruption has been a major boiling point when it comes to the policing, right from the local level to major this thing, because we read in the newspapers about a lot of rent-seeking behavior on the part of police. And also during the pandemic 2 years, when health emergency was declared as a curfew and a lockdown, at that time, gross violation of human rights of the common citizens happened. That also invited attention of National Human Rights Commission. That all the international global instruments that we have, India has ratified, UNHRC's this thing, human rights instruments and covenants. I think we need to make our police force abreast with that, and police academy also needs massive revision in the syllabus of the training, because so many new things that none of the new laws, whether they are about environment or about housing or displacement and relocation, or the new laws regarding the women's rights or rights of the Adivasis, forest dwellers, about that, there is a, you see, when you go at a ground level, there seems to be total ignorance. So I think a lot needs to be done by the state as well as the non-state actors. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker isn't here yet.
Now, sir is trying to connect. बार-बार उनका drop हो जा रहा है. 2-3 बार his joining.
कहाँ है? वो कहाँ है? Where
हम
is he?
झारखंड कोल्हान के आगे, तो उधर से बारिश हो रही है वहां पे.
बारिश वहाँ वही जो सही सभी जगह यही सवाल है. हमारे वहाँ भी बहुत जोरों के आज ऑरेंज अलर्ट है बॉम्बे में.
मैं ट्राई कर रहा हूँ. Meanwhile, we can also discuss some of the research questions और टॉपिक अगर कुछ लोगों के पास हैं.
और कोई भी रिसर्चर ने जो अर्बन इश्यूज लिया है, वो बिलाल खान जी जब हमारे साथ हैं, तो उनको भी आपको अपना प्रश्न पूछना होगा, क्योंकि there are I think 2 or 3 researchers who have taken up urban development issues. Yeah.
Meanwhile, we can utilize the time.
We can discuss that. Yeah, we can utilize that.
Lekha ji has written to us also.
Yeah.
So Lekha ji, would you like to discuss the topic?
Yes. Am I audible?
You are audible, yeah.
Okay, so I think I was not able to join the last 2 sessions. Therefore, okay, so I basically wanted to research about the challenges faced by Hindi medium students in higher education, a case study of Delhi University. We've seen that even in the National Education Policy 2020, there has been a focus on promoting higher education in regional languages, that too in technical fields. But here we see Delhi University, a university that has been teaching, conducting master's courses and even PhD courses in Hindi for more than 20 years. And if you talk to the students there, there's so many issues to explore. So that is what I wanted to do. But given that we only have 1 month to do the field work, I have thought of limiting it to one department, that is Department of Political Science. So yeah, I just wanted to ask you guys if it is a viable topic and anything else.
I think extremely important topic you have chosen, because now we know that after 2000, because of Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, in last 22 years, we have so many first generation learners knocking at the doors of university. Even in last 5 years, we see from 740 universities, now India has 1068 universities. Okay, so and the teaching quality also has suffered a lot. And when it comes to Hindi medium students, the problems of getting resources or getting material and the reference material is a major challenge. If you read the report, like a series of reports which Dr. Ghanshyam Shah and Dr. Sukhdev Thorat have come up about the problems faced by first generation learners, and especially those who come from the intersectionally vulnerable communities are many. So I think it is a very important topic that you have chosen. The question they have focused on 3 parameters. One is that the feeling of isolation, because when you are not English speaking, you are also not part of the inner circle, which inner circle means they are in the leadership position, they take part in co-curricular and extracurricular activities, and even in curricular activities, they are much ahead. They have easy access to library, because all the journals, most of the journals and books and reports are in English. Online sources, we have more than like 40,000 online sources for the higher education in India, but they are also mostly in English. EPG Pathshala courses, and also IGNOU has a Hindi resources. But even eGyan Kosh, if you see, IGNOU is a free portal where you can download the lessons, very, very extremely rich material, because they are the best teachers of our country have written IGNOU's lessons. They are also mostly in English. EPG Pathshala's 24,000 courses are material, lectures and everything is in English. So I think it is in this context, one, how to, first of all, having a bridge courses where Also, Hindi medium students are also acclimatized with English, because I also studied in Gujarati. Okay, it was in college that I picked up English, and translation helped me a lot because I was active in the social movement. So a lot of translation work used to come to me. Any English document, they would ask me to translate to Gujarati. And that also helped me with this thing. So that is one aspect, that no one should be deprived of a global language, because English is the window to the world. And number two, providing more material in regional language, that should be the topmost priority. ICSSR has a special fund allocated for translation, but there are hardly any proposals. Not many teachers are. Translation is always considered to be an inferior task, no, in the academic hierarchy. So only unless you have a passion to reach out to people, that means people in the movement, like we in the women's movement, anything we publish in English, we also equally publish in the local languages, in Gujarati, Marathi, and English, whether it's a leaflet or a document or a research report, that is there. But when it comes to mainstream education, educational institution, you do hardly see anyone doing translation work, though the funds are there. Even UGC has, ICSSR has, ICCR has funds for translation. You rarely get proposals. Even Sahitya Academy also has a massive program on translation. Katha has a massive program on translation, but you are not getting people the motivation among the educated elite to provide literature in Hindi, especially the social scientific, like medical. Now recently we have, as per the new education policy, medical colleges will have lectures in Hindi, but except for hai, hoga, aayenge, jayenge, they are using English words or medical terminologies. We don't even have Shabdavali, which is generally during Hindi Pakhwada. We celebrate 15 days in a year as a Hindi Pakhwada. In that also, some highly energetic teacher would organize a workshop on Shabdavali, and they would invite people like us, that, okay, Shabdavali in economics, Shabdavali in political science, Shabdavali in geography. And we really have to really work really hard to make these technical terminologies into Hindi. So challenges are many, but I think it's, at least we identify the problem, we won't even strive for its solution. So I really congratulate you for choosing this topic. Very important.
Very good topic. Sulekha ji, what are you thinking in terms of your methodology? क्या सवाल पूछेंगे और किनसे पूछेंगे?
Hello, sir. So, sir, I've tried to talk to a few students, and I've tried to see if they would be willing to give interviews. Basically, I wish to extract explanatory information. So, instead of going towards a strict questionnaire, I want to actually learn from them what the challenges are. Obviously, I'll be setting the direction of the interview, but yeah, what are the challenges? What they think would help them a lot? Because I've also seen this problem that a lot of students have been, because of the constraints, they are shifting from Hindi to English, and that will basically distract them from their entire career course. Because for someone who studied, has their entire education in Hindi so far, to switch in English and then again switch back to Hindi for anything they wish to do after masters is a very big problem. So for now, I've thought of the interview from the student as well as a few professors, and like I said, I'm trying to do only for the one department, because we don't have enough time to take students from all departments. So yeah, just the students and the professor right now.
ठीक है, मैं थोड़े डिटेल में एक एक करके आता हूँ. आप you will focus more on students. Okay, I got it. Department Pol Science, Delhi University में.
Yes.
Colleges में भी bachelor's, master's, PhD क्या देखें?
So only I feel like right now, because it's also the exam season this month, it will be difficult to reach out to colleges. So I feel like the masters, and if I'm not sure if I can get a few PhD students, but yeah, specifically masters.
फिर वो बहुत पिन पॉइंटेड हो जाएगा सुलेखा जी, इन माय व्यू, क्योंकि वो पूरा एक डिपार्टमेंट का स्टडी हो जाएगा. इतना मतलब क्योंकि रिसर्च फाइंडिंग्स हैज टू बी अ बिट ऑफ एनोनिमाइज्ड, तो सीधे एक डिपार्टमेंट को टारगेट करेंगे तो अच्छा नहीं होगा। आप 3 4 5 डिपार्टमेंट ले लीजिए सोशल साइंसेस का, और उसमें मास्टर्स और पीएचडी के स्टूडेंट्स, सो आपके स्टेक होल्डर्स 2 हो जाएं। 2 अभी तक आपने किया, एक तो टीचिंग फैकल्टी, दूसरे जो स्टूडेंट्स हो गया मास्टर्स एंड अबव। कुछ और स्टेक होल्डर्स को भी आप बढ़ाइए ना, कुछ एडमिन स्टाफ ले लीजिए, उनके एक्सपीरियंसेस भी महत्वपूर्ण है। कुछ पेरेंट्स को ले सकते हैं या कुछ रिक्रूटर्स को ले सकते हैं, स्टेक होल्डर्स को थोड़ा और बढ़ा लीजिए। क्वेश्चनर आप छोटा ही रखेंगे तो अच्छा है। क्वेश्चनर ठीक है, लेकिन
What about teachers?
बना ली टीचर्स, शी हैज ऑलरेडी, शी इज टेकिंग। ड्यू के भी कुछ टीचर से आप बात कर सकते हैं, मतलब कॉलेजेस के टीचर से। शालू मैम, वुड यू लाइक टू ऐड एनीथिंग?
यस, मतलब नहीं, इसमें स्टेक होल्डर्स भी हो गए, बट आपके जो जो क्वेश्चंस होंगे वो काफी अगर थोड़ा सा मतलब उसको हम स्पेसिफिक करके पूछे कि क्या चैलेंजेस हैं, और थोड़ा ओपन एंडेड लाइक एक्सप्लोरेटरी काइंड ऑफ स्टडी अगर आप बनाते हैं, सो दैट आई थिंक दैट वुड हेल्प। क्योंकि लाइक कुछ चैलेंजेस में अगर आप यस नो क्वेश्चन रख देंगे, सो देन इट विल निकल के नहीं आएगा डेटा। सो यू हैव टू गो फॉर एक्सप्लोरेटरी काइंड ऑफ अ स्टडी, कि आप थोड़ा ओपन एंडेड क्वेश्चंस रखें, सो थोड़ा आपको रिस्पॉन्सेज मिल जाएंगे। सो इफ यू कुड टेक अप अ पायलट स्टडी, और आप 2 4 लोगों से बात करके देखें, एंड देन उसके बेसिस पे फिर यू कैन चेंज द क्वेश्चंस और गो अकॉर्डिंगली। दैट इज जस्ट माय सजेशन।
I would also like to suggest a
Alright.
coping strategy. How are they managing? How are they
Alright,
coping
thank
with
you
the
so much.
English lectures and English books?
Okay, ma'am. Okay, thank you so much.
Mr. Vivek, please unmute and ask the question.
No, and I would like to share one example that when I was studying in our city had only one university, which was English medium university, MS University. And because I had exposure from English, 8 students who had decided to give up their studies because they could not understand the economics lecture in English, I voluntarily decided to teach them. So I would read they would procure all the books. And in our university, the colonialism was so strong that any Indian author you quoted, they would fail you. You had to quote either the British or the American authors. So their English was also very big. So I would first read and then sit. After every lecture, we would sit together in a circle, 8 of them, right from FIBA to MA. So for 5 years, we had this arrangement. All of them excelled. They got MA higher second or the first class, and many of them are also in the teaching profession. So it is doable. I'm talking about the mid 70s, no? From 72 to 77. Thank
you. Hello. Excuse me, ma'am. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Ma'am, I'm working on the topic like that impact of COVID-19 on climate. Okay. So from that point of view, I have discussed with certain stakeholders like teachers, students, and parents of the teachers. What is the impact of COVID-19 on the environment or climate? From that point of view, I found that there are certain quality of air. It is improved a lot. For example, in a Nashik city, it is a very city where there is so much traffic, and that's why during that COVID-19 period, it was found that traffic was reduced due to the lockdown, and people were locked into their homes because working premises were closed, and that's why people were working from the home. And it is no doubt it is somewhat affecting the right to work of the pupils. Many were suffered, but from the environment point of view, it is a positive impact that due to reduction of carbon monoxide into the atmosphere, the quality of air improved much, firstly. Secondly, there are certain diseases which are causing due to the pollution like asthma. Those diseases and the patients of those diseases are also decreased because they are getting proper air, and that's why quality of life was improved during that period as far as the disease like asthma is concerned. So from that point of view, I have framed my hypothesis that during COVID-19, the right to health and right to environment is protected. and that's why I framed the questions and asked those questions to the students, basically, whether what are the to find to check what are the impacts of the COVID-19 as far as on your health is concerned, as far as on your education is concerned. This question is asked to students, then to parents, and again to the traffic police. They are working in a traffic, and that's why due to the reduction of the traffic, how they are feeling in different type of choke and signals. So their responses are also considered here. Moreover, I also discussed with advocates. They are telling that due to the COVID-19, that's why due to working from the home, there is very much positive impact on the quality of air, and that's why by this way, I am eligible to prove that whatever the hypothesis which are framed initially, I am able to prove that on the basis of this data analysis that COVID-19, no doubt it is a natural calamity, but it affected positively on the improvement of air, on the improvement of climate. So this is overall throughout shortly idea about my research work. So thank you, ma'am. If there is any improvement, kindly guide me guidely so that I may make changes into it. Thank
जी
you, ma'am.
जी, आपका टॉपिक तो अच्छा है, लेकिन आप कोविड-19 से ज्यादा
Yes, sir.
तो आप लॉकडाउन का देख रहे हैं ना सिनेरियो?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
मोर देन कोविड-19, मतलब मोर देन हेल्थ इशू, आप जो कंडीशन है जैसे कर्फ्यू हो गया कहीं पर, वो वाला आप इम्पैक्ट देखना चाह रहे हैं ना? तो टॉपिक को थोड़ा सा एक बार अगर वो रिवाइज करते तो कुछ और इसमें आता, कुछ लिटरेचर भी देख लेते तो उससे बात बनती।
Okay, sir.
ठीक
Yes,
है।
sir.
Meanwhile, Rajiv ji has joined. So Nikita, why don't we introduce without wasting any time and start with it?
Yeah.
है ना?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Nikita, yes.
Moving forward, we have Shri Rajiv Ranjan Singh, who will be taking a session on the topic Police System, Laws and Public Policy. Shri Rajiv Ranjan Singh is a retired IPS officer, a President Medal awardee, and former DIG Kolhan, Chaibasha, Jharkhand. Welcome, sir, and over to you.
Are you able to hear us, Rajiv ji? नहीं, voice नहीं आ पा रही। Rajiv ji, we are not able to hear you. Mic bottom left में एक स्पीकर है ना, म्यूट अनम्यूट, वहां पे एक अप एरो होगा। हाँ, वहां पे वो माइक्रोफोन के लिए पूछ रहे होंगे, एक बार ट्राई कर सकते हैं। कनेक्टिंग टू ऑडियो अभी दिखा रहा है, यस। अब हमारी आवाज आ रही है आपको, राजीव जी?
हेलो।
हाँ, आ रही है, यस यस।
अभी आवाज अभी आना शुरू।
फोन को थोड़ा आप ऐसे कर लेते ना तो पूरा ऐसा स्क्रीन आ जाता, इसको ना। हाँ, यस यस, ठीक है ठीक है। वेलकम राजीव जी, ओवर टू यू। राजीव जी, यस, ओवर टू यू। हाँ, माइक अभी ऑफ हो गया। हाँ, माइक ऑन करके आप स्टार्ट कर सकते हैं जी।
हाँ, अभी स्टार्ट करें
जी, आप स्टार्ट कर लीजिए जी।
हाँ हाँ, गुड आफ्टरनून टू ऑल ऑफ यू। माई सेल्फ इज राजीव रंजन सिंह, रिटायर्ड IPS ऑफिसर फ्रॉम झारखंड कैडर। सोनू जी, आवाज ठीक जा रही है?
यस सर।
जी बिल्कुल बिल्कुल।
हाँ, तो टुडे टॉपिक है सोनू जी पुलिसिंग।
जी, पुलिस सिस्टम्स, लॉज एंड पॉलिसीज, लॉज एंड पब्लिक पॉलिसी, हाउ पुलिस सिस्टम इंटरेक्ट विद फॉर मेकिंग लॉज एंड पब्लिक पॉलिसी फॉर गुड गवर्नेंस, उनका क्या रोल है।
एक्चुअली पुलिस सिस्टम इंडिया में जो भी है ऑलमोस्ट सारे स्टेट्स का ऑलमोस्ट एक ही जैसा है। पुलिस हायरार्की में एट द टॉप लेवल डीजीपी है, डायरेक्टर जनरल ऑफ द पुलिस। कुछ स्टेट्स में कमिश्नर ऑफ पुलिस हैं, जहां भी कमिश्नरेट है। आफ्टर डीजीपी देयर आर सो मेनी एडिशनल डीजीपी। उसके बाद इन रेंज आईजीपी, आईजी पुलिस, ही इज द इंचार्ज ऑफ रेंज। उसके नीचे डीआईजी, डिप्टी इंस्पेक्टर जनरल ऑफ द पुलिस। एंड डिस्ट्रिक्ट का इंचार्ज होते हैं सुपरिटेंडेंट ऑफ पुलिस। उनके नीचे डीवाईएसपी, डिप्टी सुपरिटेंडेंट ऑफ पुलिस, जो सब डिविजनल इंचार्ज होते हैं। और फाइनली सबसे नीचे में आते हैं वो है एसएचओ, स्टेशन हाउस ऑफिसर्स। तो एसएचओ, जिसको हम लोग हिंदी में थानेदार कहते हैं, द इम्पोर्टेंट रोल ऑफ द थानेदार इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। ही इज द almost law and order in charge of his own jurisdiction of a local PS, and he is finally responsible. And so many other officers are working under SHO in every PS in India. तो ये सोनू जी इसका हायरार्की है पुलिस की। अब रोल ऑफ द पुलिस इज डिफरेंट।
Some connectivity issues, it seems.
हेलो
जी
Yes,
जी
हेलो।
जी
yes, sir, you are audible now.
हाँ सोनू जी, सॉरी
Yes.
फॉर इंटरप्शन। आवाज जा रही है?
Yes, yes, it's coming properly. Yes,
हेलो
please go on. Yes,
हेलो।
yes, we are able to hear you. हाँ, हमें आ रही है वॉइस।
हेलो
हेलो, हमें आ रही है वॉइस।
हेलो
हेलो, हाँ, हमें आ रही है वॉइस। प्लीज गो ऑन।
हेलो।
अभी आर यू एबल टू हियर अस, राजीव जी?
हेलो।
ना, नहीं आ रही है वॉइस। वी आर एबल टू हियर यू। कुछ कनेक्शन टूट जा रहा है।
ऐसा क्या हो रहा है?
हमें आ रही है वॉइस। नहीं नहीं, हमें आ रही है वॉइस प्रॉपर।
Sir, if you could text him that we are able to listen to him.
हेलो।
Yes, sir, we are able to listen to you.
जी राजीव जी, प्लीज गो ऑन।
हाँ, अभी आवाज जा रही है?
यस यस।
हाँ, राइट। तो दिस इज द हायरार्की ऑफ द पुलिस सिस्टम इन इंडिया। ऑलमोस्ट सभी स्टेट्स में यही हायरार्की है। अब रोल ऑफ द पुलिस, दिस इज द वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टॉपिक। व्हाट इज द रोल ऑफ द पुलिस? तो रोल ऑफ द पुलिस इज टू कंट्रोल लॉ एंड ऑर्डर, एंड पुलिस इज द ऑलमोस्ट, यू कैन से कि पुलिस इज द कस्टोडियन ऑफ लॉ। पुलिस जो है, इट इज द इम्प्लीमेंटिंग बॉडी ऑफ द लॉ। जैसे आप कहते हैं ना कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट इज द कस्टोडियन ऑफ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, तो उसी तरह से पुलिस के बारे में आप कह सकते हैं कि इसको लॉ, जो भारत देश का क्रिमिनल प्रोसीज्योर लॉ है और सिविल प्रोसीज्योर लॉ है, सीपीसी एंड सीआरपीसी, पुलिस हैज टू इम्प्लीमेंट दिस and has to follow the whether the law is implemented truly or not. जैसे सपोज करते हैं कि कहीं अगर मर्डर हो जाती है, तो चाहे वो मर्डर करने वाला व्यक्ति कोई अमीर हो या गरीब हो, लॉ लॉ है, सबके लिए बराबर है। चाहे कोई मुख्यमंत्री हो, मंत्री हो या एक कॉमन मैन हो, वो धारा 302 के तहत ही एफआईआर होगा और सजा भी ऑलमोस्ट एक ही है, चाहे वो गरीब व्यक्ति के लिए हो या अमीर व्यक्ति के लिए। माने एवरीबॉडी इज कॉमन बिफोर द लॉ। तो ये कंसेप्ट है पुलिस का। पुलिस का काम है लॉ एंड ऑर्डर मेंटेन करना। पुलिस का काम है जनरल सिटीजन को सिक्योरिटी देना। पुलिस का काम है वीकर सेक्शन को सिक्योर करना। पुलिस का काम है वोमेन एंड जो हमारी महिला शक्ति हैं, वोमेन एम्पावरमेंट पर फोकस करना, लड़कियां सुरक्षित रहें, कानून सुरक्षित रहे और लोग घरों में चैन से सो सकें। ये पुलिस की जिम्मेवारी है। जनरल न्यूसेंस जो होती है सोसाइटी में, उसको रोकने की जिम्मेवारी है। तो आप एक तरह से समझ सकते हैं कि पुलिस इज द ओनली विजिबल फोर्स, विजिबल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट विच इज ऑन ड्यूटी 24/7। पुलिस रोड पर खड़ी है, वर्दी में है, एनीबडी कैन गो एंड सी द पुलिस। ऐसा नहीं है कि पुलिस अनआइडेंटिफाइड है। पुलिस इज आइडेंटिफाइड एवरीवेयर। जितने भी पुलिस स्टेशंस हैं वो सब 24/7 खुले होते हैं। तो पुलिस इज ए विजिबल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन एंड इट इज on 24/7 duty. So it is very important and integral part of the government, and you can say the government runs through the police. Government reaches the public through the police. तो पुलिस बहुत गवर्नमेंट का एक विजिबल एंड इम्पोर्टेंट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है। जब भी कहीं अनलॉलेसनेस है तो उसको रोकने के लिए भी पुलिस जाती है। इसीलिए पुलिस को कई बार सोसाइटी से निगेटिव भी फेस करना पड़ता है, क्योंकि पुलिस से आधी आबादी तो ऐसे नाराज रहती है। सपोज कीजिए 2 आदमी लड़ाई लड़के थाने जाते हैं, तो पुलिस किसी एक के पक्ष में काम करेगी जो विक्टिम है, तो जो कल्प्रिट है वो तो ऐसे ही नाराज हो जाएगा। तो पुलिस को ये नहीं देखना है कि एवरीबॉडी इज हैप्पी विद द पुलिस और नॉट। पुलिस को ये देखना है कि whether we are implementing the law correctly or not, whether the rule of law is enforcing in your jurisdiction or not. So this is the work of the police. वो अपने चला रहे हैं गाड़ी,
उतरने लग नहीं है सर।
हम उतर नहीं रहे हैं, तो बोलो को आगे आगे चलें, हम लोग फॉलो करते हैं। तो ये पुलिस का रोल है और हम समझते हैं कि ये बड़ा इम्पोर्टेंट है पुलिस का रोल ना। और अब जहां पर पॉलिटिकल इंटरफेरेंस पुलिस में होता है, जहां भी पुलिस के साथ अदर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन इंटरफेयर करने लगते हैं, चाहे पॉलिटिशियंस हो या जो भी हो, तब पुलिस अपना रोल इम्पार्शियल ढंग से नहीं करती है। और जब पुलिस इम्पार्शियल ढंग से रोल नहीं करेगी तो आम आदमी को प्रॉब्लम होगा। दिस इज द फैक्ट। और हम लोगों को कोशिश करनी है कि पुलिस अपना रोल करे ठीक से। दिस इज आवर प्राइम ड्यूटी। और एनीथिंग एल्स क्वेश्चन, एनी क्वेश्चन सोनू जी?
पब्लिक पॉलिसी में, या जैसे पॉलिसी हम लोग बनाते हैं, बहुत सारे रूल्स लॉज, उसमें पुलिस का क्या रोल होता है, इसके बारे में कुछ अगर आप बताएं।
एक्चुअली जो जनरल पॉलिसीज जो बनती है, अगर पुलिस से रिलेटेड पॉलिसी बनी गई तो होम डिपार्टमेंट हमारे यहाँ बना हुआ है, एवरी स्टेट में है। पुलिस अपनी पॉलिसीज को बना करके होम डिपार्टमेंट को भेजती है। लेकिन वो लिमिटेड है पुलिस से रिलेटेड। लेकिन अगर ओवरऑल जो पॉलिसी है वो पॉलिसीज बनाने के लिए अलग अलग विंग है, अलग अलग डिपार्टमेंट है, और जनरली पुलिस पॉलिसीज नहीं बनाती है, पुलिस उसको इम्प्लीमेंट करती है, पुलिस सुझाव देती है। पुलिस जो ऑलरेडी पॉलिसियां बनी हुई है, जैसे मर्डर करने में क्या सेक्शन लगेगा, ये ऑलरेडी सेक्शंस बने हुए हैं, तो पुलिस उसको इम्प्लीमेंट करती है। पुलिस इनफैक्ट पुलिस कोई डायरेक्ट पॉलिसी नहीं बनाती है। क्लियर है?
जी जी। और जिस तरह के नए नए पॉलिसीज बनते हैं, जैसे कि साइबर क्राइम हुआ या वाइल्ड लाइफ का हुआ, फॉरेस्ट का हुआ, कई सारे सिविल डायमेंशंस हैं, उसमें पुलिस किस तरह से इंटरेक्ट करती है और नए नए टेक्नोलॉजी से क्या चैलेंजेस आते हैं, इस पर आपका क्या एक्सपीरियंस रहा है?
हाँ, एक्चुअली साइबर क्राइम एक नई चैलेंजेज है पुलिस के लिए भी, सोसाइटी के लिए भी। तो ये जो न्यू चैलेंजेज आए हैं, इसके लिए पुलिस डायरेक्टली पॉलिसी में तो इन्वॉल्व नहीं है, लेकिन चूंकि पुलिस प्रॉब्लम फेस करती है तो सुझाव देती है गवर्नमेंट को कि अब ये प्रॉब्लम आ रहा है, तो इसमें हमारे पास कोई सेक्शन ही नहीं है कि वी कैन लॉज एफआईआर और वी कैन चेक दिस न्यूसेंस। तो उसके लिए फिर गवर्नमेंट पार्लियामेंट में एक्ट पारित करती है। तो फैक्चुअल है ये कि पुलिस जो एक्ट पारित होता है उसको इम्प्लीमेंट करती है, और पुलिस को जहां लगता है कि अब हम फेल हो गए, कोई आपके पास कानून नहीं है, तो फिर वो गवर्नमेंट उसको फिर एक्ट पारित करती है, और देन तब पुलिस फिर उसको फॉलो करती है। यही प्रोसीड्योर है पूरे इंडिया में। क्लियर है?
जी जी। प्रोफेसर पटेल, वुड यू लाइक टू आस्क एनीथिंग? विभूति मैम, निकिता, डू यू हैव एनी क्वेश्चन? और शालू मैम?
So I have a question.
ओके, गो अहेड वन बाय वन।
सर, जैसे आजकल सोशल मीडिया की वजह से कोई भी केस होता है तो बहुत बार उसकी कॉन्फिडेंशियलिटी मेंटेन करने में पुलिस को प्रॉब्लम आती है, तो पुलिस उससे कैसे टैकल करती है कि अभी केस की इन्वेस्टिगेशन ऑनगोइंग है और उससे पहले ही पूरी इंफॉर्मेशन मीडिया में बाहर चली गई है, एंड सेंसिटिव इंफॉर्मेशन टू व्हिच इज नॉट सपोज्ड टू गो आउट देयर।
नहीं, ये आप बिल्कुल सही बता रही हैं। ये प्रॉब्लम अभी आ रही है क्योंकि सोशल मीडिया का प्लेटफॉर्म इतना बड़ा है कि उसका पीओ जो है पूरा वर्ल्ड हो जाता है। कोई व्यक्ति अमेरिका में बैठे बैठे भी वो क्राइम कर दे सकता है। तो उसमें एक्ट तो बने हुए हैं कि उसको कॉन्फिडेंशियल रखना है। खास करके अगर किसी लड़की से रिलेटेड मैटर है तो उसको हाईलाइट नहीं करना है, चेहरा को छिपा के दिखाना है। अगर कोई बहुत सारे सोशल मीडिया पे चैनल आ गए हैं तो उनको दिखाना है। अगर वो ऐसा नहीं करते हैं तो वायलेशन के लिए आईटी एक्ट में एक्शंस लेने के लिए ऑलरेडी धारा बने हुए हैं, जिसके तहत हम लोग कार्रवाई कर सकते हैं। ये बने हुए हैं, लेकिन आपको कंप्लेन करना होगा, किसी को उस पे जाके कंप्लेन करना होगा। लेकिन अभी भी थोड़ा ये कॉम्प्लिकेटेड है। जब सपोज कीजिए कि फेसबुक का क्राइम अगर कोई हो रहा है, तो फेसबुक का हेडक्वार्टर बैठा हुआ है यूएस में, तो कई बार काफी समय लग जाता है वहां से हम लोगों को रिस्पांस मिलने में और फर्दर उस पर कार्रवाई करने में टाइम लगता है। मेन है कल्प्रिट को चिन्हित करना, कल्प्रिट के एड्रेस को पता करना। तो इसीलिए थोड़ा समय लगता है और पुलिस को परेशानी भी है। नई चैलेंजेज है पुलिस के लिए। पुलिस मॉडर्नाइज होने की कोशिश कर रही है, सब लोग लगे हुए हैं। इसी के लिए अभी हम लोग एक्सपर्ट लोग भी पुलिस में बहाल हो रहे हैं। ये प्रॉब्लम को आउटसोर्स भी किया जा रहा है। तो प्रोग्रेस इज गोइंग ऑन, चल रहा है। इट विल टेक टाइम।
सर, मैं ये पूछना चाहूंगी कि बहुत सालों से काफी सारे पुलिस अफसर ने, आईजी पुलिस और रिटायर्ड पुलिस ने भी किताबें लिखी है जिसमें पुलिस रिफॉर्म की बात की है, क्योंकि ये जो कानून बने थे आईपीसी के वो सभी अंग्रेजों ने बनाए थे मैकॉलेजी में। तो आपको क्या लगता है किस तरीके के पुलिस रिफॉर्म होने चाहिए?
मैडम, ये प्रकाश सिंह बादल के केस में सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने बड़ा स्पष्ट रूप से ये जजमेंट दिए थे कि सबसे पहले पुलिस रिफॉर्म में तो ये जरूरत है कि जो ट्रांसफर पोस्टिंग की पॉलिसी है दैट शुड बी इम्पार्शियल। अभी पुलिस के इवन डीजीपी का ट्रांसफर सीएम के ट्यून पे होता है, तो ये बहुत जरूरी है कि इनके ट्रांसफर पोस्टिंग में पॉलिटिकल इंटरफेरेंस नहीं हो। आपको याद होगा एक केरला का डीजीपी का मैटर इसी तरह का आया था और डीजीपी को हटा दिया गया था चीफ मिनिस्टर बनने के बाद। तो डीजीपी और चीफ सेक्रेटरी दोनों को चेंज किया गया था। तो डीजीपी हैज अप्रोच टू द सुप्रीम कोर्ट, क्योंकि सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कहा है कि 2 साल डीजीपी का टेन्योर रहेगा अंटिल अनलेस के कोई ग्रेवर चार्जेज नहीं लग गया। तो फाइनली सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने उनको रीस्टोर किया था, बट इट हैज टेकन सो लॉन्ग टाइम कि बाय दैट टाइम वो रिटायर ही हो गए। तो ये कॉम्प्लिकेशन तो है, और बड़ा सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने उसमें डिफाइन किया था कि चीफ सेक्रेटरी कैन एक्ट एट द ट्यून ऑफ द चीफ मिनिस्टर बिकॉज ही हैज टू इम्प्लीमेंट द पॉलिसीज ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट, बट ए डीजीपी कैन नॉट एक्ट एट द बिहेस्ट ऑफ द चीफ मिनिस्टर बिकॉज डीजीपी हैज नॉट टू इम्प्लीमेंट द policies of the chief minister, but he is the guardian of law and order. He has to implement the rule of law of the country. So a chief minister said, अगर कोई चीफ मिनिस्टर कहते हैं कि किसी का मर्डर हो गया है, डीजीपी साहब इसको छोड़ दीजिए, तो चीफ मिनिस्टर गलत कह रहे हैं। तो डीजीपी इज नॉट सपोज टू एक्ट अकॉर्डिंगली चीफ मिनिस्टर। तो ये बड़ा देश का विषय है, लेकिन आप जानती हैं कि कोई भी चीफ मिनिस्टर पुलिस को छोड़ना नहीं चाहता है। सारे लोग चाहते हैं कि पुलिस एक ऐसा विंग है जो हमारे अंडर में रहेगा तो सारे लोग हमसे डरेंगे, सारे लोग समझेंगे कि हम मुख्यमंत्री हैं। तो ये इंडिया का प्रॉब्लम है और ये बहुत दिनों से प्रॉब्लम चल रहा है। अभी भी पुलिस ऑफिसर्स इम्पार्शियली एक्ट नहीं कर पा रहे हैं। आप बंगाल को ही देख रहे हैं कि पुलिस वाले पीटे जा रहे हैं। अभी हाल ही में हमने कई वीडियो देखा कि लोग ये पंचायत चुनाव के दौरान पुलिस वाले को ही पब्लिक पिटाई कर रहे हैं, ओपन इसका वीडियो क्लिक हो रहा है। तो ये सारे नतीजे इसलिए हैं कि पुलिस अभी भी 100% पॉलिटिकल बॉसेस के अंडर में काम कर रही है। जिस दिन पुलिस को फ्रीडम मिल जाएगी, हम समझते हैं कि फ्रीडम नॉट फॉर डूइंग रॉन्ग थिंग, फ्रीडम फॉर डूइंग इम्पार्शियल थिंग्स, फ्रीडम फॉर डूइंग राइट थिंग, ये फ्रीडम बहुत जरूरी है। और ये मैटर काफी दिनों से चल रहा है, लेकिन अभी भी बहुत दूर लगता है इसको अचीव करना।
मेरा एक सवाल था कि ये जो नेशनल क्राइम रिकॉर्ड ब्यूरो का अगर हम डेटा देखते हैं तो उसमें क्राइम अगेंस्ट वुमेन जो है वो हर साल बढ़ता जा रहा है, कम नहीं हो रहा है। तो आपको क्या लगता है कि क्या चैलेंजेस हैं, क्या कारण है, क्या पुलिस के सामने कुछ ऐसे चैलेंजेस हैं जिसकी वजह से वो इसको कंट्रोल नहीं कर पा रहे हैं?
हाँ, आवाज क्लियर नहीं हुआ मैडम, एक्चुअली मैं गाड़ी में ट्रैवल कर रहा हूँ, फिर से एक बार बोलिए।
सर, ये जो नेशनल क्राइम रिकॉर्ड ब्यूरो का डेटा है उसके हिसाब से क्राइम अगेंस्ट वुमेन की अगर हम केसेस, आपने बताया कि रोल ऑफ द पुलिस इज टू वुमेन एम्पावरमेंट के लिए भी काम करे, वुमेन सेफ्टी के लिए काम करे, बट हमने देखा कि जो डेटा है उसके हिसाब से क्राइम अगेंस्ट वुमेन बढ़ता जा रहा है। तो आपके हिसाब से क्या चैलेंजेस है, क्या कारण हो सकते हैं कि मतलब पुलिस ठीक से काम नहीं कर पा रही है या रिपोर्टिंग ज्यादा है, या क्या कारण है कि जो केसेस हैं वो बढ़ते चले जा रहे हैं?
देखिए, इसमें हम एक चीज आपको बताना चाहेंगे मैडम कि एफआईआर की नंबर्स बढ़ने से, क्राइम का रिपोर्टिंग बढ़ने से ये नहीं सोचा जाए कि पुलिस काम नहीं कर रही है। पुलिस काम कर रही है इसलिए एफआईआर हो रहा है। और नाउ सिचुएशन, पहले आज के 25 साल पहले हमारे पास ना सोशल मीडिया था, ना मोबाइल था, ना कैमरा था। तो उस समय बहुत कुछ होता था लेकिन पता ही नहीं चलता था। अब क्या है कि इतने एजेंसीज हो गए हैं, हर व्यक्ति एक तरह से सोचिए तो चलता फिरता रिपोर्टर हो गया है कि हम लोगों को क्राइम अगेंस्ट वुमेन हो तो ये सेंसिटाइज हो जाता है और पता चलता है। तो ये गुड साइन है। और अगर रिपोर्टिंग की संख्या बढ़ रही है तो हमें खुश होनी चाहिए कि पुलिस एक्ट कर रही है। और सबसे बड़ी बात है कि महिलाएं अब थाने आ रही हैं। ये सबसे हम लोगों के लिए खुशी की बात है कि लड़कियां, महिलाएं थाने आ रही हैं, केसेज को रिपोर्ट कर रही हैं। पहले क्या था कि रिपोर्टिंग करने में महिलाएं झिझकती थी, और देश की चूंकि आधी आबादी महिलाएं हैं, अब महिलाएं वर्किंग फोर्स हो गई हैं, घर से काम करने के लिए बाहर निकल रही हैं। तो वैसे केसेस में क्राइम छोटा बड़ा होना ये बहुत कोई आश्चर्यचकित करने वाली बात नहीं है। और हमें महिलाओं को ताकतवर बनाने की जरूरत है कि इस तरह की चीजों को वो पूरे अपने शक्ति के साथ उनका अपोज कर सकें। हम लोगों को महिलाओं को थोड़ा और स्ट्रेंथन करने की जरूरत है कि महिला अपने को वीक नहीं समझ सकें। आप फॉरेन मूवीज देखिए तो महिलाएं फाइट चलाती हैं, महिलाएं भिड़ जाती हैं। अब इंडिया में भी हम लोग देख रहे हैं कि ऐसा वुमेन ओरिएंटेड मूवीज भी आ रहे हैं आजकल की। अब लड़कियां भी थोड़ा फाइटिंग सीख रही हैं, तो बहुत जरूरी है। ये ट्रांजिशन फेज है, हम समझते हैं, और हम लोगों को महिला एम्पावरमेंट पर ध्यान देने की जरूरत है। लड़कियों को स्ट्रॉन्ग करने की जरूरत है। लड़का लड़की में भेद खत्म करने की जरूरत है। जिस दिन हो जाएगा, हम समझते हैं कि हम लड़कियों को शुरू से बचपन से ही डराते हैं कि तुम लड़की हो, बाहर मत जाओ, तुमको कोई पकड़ लेगा, तुम्हारे साथ ये हो जाएगा। रेदर हम महिलाओं को, लड़कियों को बल्कि ये ट्रेनिंग दें कि तुम बाहर जाओ, तुम्हारे साथ कोई कुछ छेड़खानी करता है तो उससे भिड़ो, उसको हाईलाइट करो, अलार्म रेज करो। तो महिलाओं को सशक्त करना होगा। महिलाएं जब तक सशक्त नहीं होंगी तब तक 100% इसको हम लोग नहीं रोक सकते हैं। इसीलिए क्राइम रिपोर्टिंग से ये कभी नहीं सोचना है, इट इज ए गुड साइन कि क्राइम रिपोर्ट हो रहा है। हाँ, क्राइम रिपोर्ट होने के बाद पुलिस एक्ट कर रही है कि नहीं कर रही है, दैट इज मोर इम्पोर्टेंट, कि वेदर पुलिस इज एक्टिंग और नॉट। तो हम समझते हैं कि इट इज ए कंटिन्यूअस प्रोसेस, ये चलेगा और आगे भी चलते रहेगा। और इंडिया चूंकि प्रोग्रेस कर रहा है, अभी भी अगर हम देखें तो वर्किंग फोर्स वोमेन का हमारे यहाँ वर्ल्ड के हिसाब से बहुत कम है। चाइना में 40% वोमेन वर्किंग है, हमारे यहाँ अभी भी जो डाटा है नीति आयोग का, ओनली 17% वोमेन आर वर्किंग। तो स्टिल वी हैव टू गो ए माइल्स टू गो। अभी हमको बहुत आगे जाना है और हमें काम करना है। ठीक है
जी, एक
चलिए,
अंतिम, जैसे
थैंक यू
राजीव
सोनू जी। अब हम
जी, ठीक है, ठीक है, ओके, थैंक यू राजीव जी फॉर योर टाइम।
थैंक यू, ओके ओके, बाय।
Thank you so much.
Nikita, we can move on to next session. Yes, thank
Yeah.
you.
Moving forward, we have Sri Tikender Singh Panwar, who will be taking a session on the topic Local Governance and Public Policy. Sri Tikender Singh Panwar is a senior fellow at IMPRI and former deputy mayor at Shimla. Welcome, sir, and over to you.
Thank you, Nikita. Arjun, am I audible, Nikita?
Yes.
Yes, yes, audible.
So, may I know who the participants are? I mean, so what level do I have to?
It's a very young fellows.
Very young fellows. Okay.
So you can make it more of introductory into the arena of local governance.
Okay. Okay.
Like previous session we had was more on law and order, police. So you can tell your experience as a deputy mayor in Shimla, more of those examples.
Okay. Okay, so thank you so much. And I think what I'm going to do in another 30-40 minutes is that I'm going to speak for 20-25 minutes. Nikita, just remind me when it's 25 minutes. And then probably we can have some Q&As. Now, I don't know where to start from, but just to, I think this talk would be just to give a glimpse of how our cities have actually emerged and how our cities have actually fared. Previous session, we did a very interesting conversation on the historic evolution of urbanization. And we had to actually run through, because we started from the Mohenjo-daro, Harappa civilization, how strong settlements, urban settlements emerged in those previous eras. And then to this long period from 5,000 years to our Hindu rulers in the north, and then of course the Mughal period. So how these cities have really developed, evolved, and the colonial period and the post-colonial. So what I'm going to do here is just again to give you a glimpse, but I don't want to go back and jump back to the Mohenjo-daro period. What we need to know there, I think 2 or 3 important positionings, I think that is important for our very young participants to learn, to emerge. The first thing is that cities have never been the way we are thinking them to be now, to be a ruler-ruled concept. of governance. We have seen historically that we have had cities where the ruler-ruled concept was not there, which means the cities, the small, I mean, and I'm talking about those towns, the settlements were very, very small in numbers and also in size. But we have seen this, that the people could manage the cities themselves. So that's the first lesson I think our young participants must know. And why I want to build this, because I want to just stretch it to the most modern concept, which Lefebvre, one of the French sociologists and one of the finest anthropologists we have had, who coined the slogan "Right to the City." So reclaiming the right to the city. So yeah, so that's the first thing. So this whole bunch of ideas that there's somebody who's going to rule us, and we as subjects are supposed to just follow some of the coded languages, coded inscriptions that are there. That inscriptions follow in the building bylaws. That inscriptions follow in the form of different set of laws that we actually implement or execute in the urban. That's not been the case. There have been instances where people's participation or people themselves manage the affairs, and to a fairly large extent also develop that. That's the first thing. The second part is that I would like to talk also about cities in as centers of massive appropriation of capital. Now, this is a little difficult for our young people to understand, but you cannot minus cities from the overall political economy that your system is passing through. So, Arjun, let us start from the colonial period, because I think that is from where I want to just build this argument. And why colonial period? Because to a fairly large extent, because the modern town or the modern city of South Asia or of India are a kind of mix of many historical conjunctures. But that doesn't mean, we carry all those legacies still. But at the same time, we just cannot even just discard those periods. Take, for example, you still have the cantonment and the civil lines. And the cantonment part of the town where you require a regimentized force was a British addition to the Indian urban spectrum. And I think 1857 uprising was one of the major reasons why cities developed by the colonial rulers, particularly by the British, came in the form of these two important sets of the military cantonments. And most of the cantonments were, of course, your geostrategic locations where you had a military establishment, and at the same time, the civil lines where you have some kind of civil administration. But the point that I want to make is that the duality in the city was very stark in the British period also. If you are in Delhi, you can easily find the kind of Lutyens Delhi that they built. Look at the way how they build their houses, the gigantic nature of such construction. If you visit Simla, because Simla was the summer capital, you can easily visualize how you had the British bungalows where the British officers stayed, and at the same time you had our native Indians and very interesting terminology that they developed: Panch ghar ki line, 12 ghar ki line. So these were like very small tenements, very small houses. So just to exhibit the sheer proudness, the sheer authority of the British. That's the point. So this duality in the city between what I call the rich and the poor, which I call the urban elite and the poor, was very stark even in the colonial period. Now in 1947, this should have vanished. This should have finished, and we should have had a very fairly because we had a very fairly egalitarian constitution, the constitution that said one person, one vote, and that must translate into one economic unit. Did that happen? I remember one of the, I'm just for a very young participants, probably they don't even, before you come to the jargon of urbanization and, to the terminology of urbanization. So I remember one of the profound leaders of Asia from Vietnam, who was leading the Vietnam Revolution, Ho Chi Minh. He came to Delhi, and of course he was given ceremonial guard of honor in the Red Fort. He said, "What the hell have you done? I mean, you threw the Britishers out, and instead of, and you have occupied those houses. I mean, how could you do that?" So it's just, it's just observation. But now I think how prudent that observation was. You threw the Britishers. I mean, you threw them from the South Bloc and the North Bloc, and then now you have occupied. And I'm talking about the 60s, late 60s and 70s. So not much change, but that doesn't mean that nothing happened. I think some very important interventions were made after 1947. Arjun, do we have those slides? I mean, I could just run through those slides from the 47 period. So maybe it will be easier for me if it is there. Nikita?
I'll have to ask Arjun, sir.
Where is Arjun? Can you just run those slides? Because I do not know how do I run it? So it will be easy. Otherwise, I'll be just speaking about anecdotes and all. Is Arjun around? How do you do that? Because it is there on my computer, but how do you do that is the question. So I have it right on the desktop. Any idea how do I just?
Yeah. Do you have share screen, green icon?
Just hold on, ma'am. So I have share screen. Yes, I have share screen.
Click on the arrow.
Yes, I have. Now what do I do, ma'am, after this?
Is your slide open? Your
yes.
PPT open?
Yes. Okay. Wait, I have to open the PPT first.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to open the PPT.
And now you click on share screen.
And now I click on the share screen. Wait, so this is here.
Open it in a working mode, huh? Not slide.
Just hold on a second. So I do share screen, and what do I do?
But if you see that slide.
Oh yeah, it is there. 47 to it is there. Yeah. So yeah, so this is one of my favorite subjects. So can you see that, Nikita?
It's coming
on the screen. It's there.
It's coming. I think there's a problem of bandwidth, but it's coming. Yeah, it shows.
So yeah, 1947 to 91. I mean, I would like to put the two periods, 1947 to 91, and of course from 1991 to the current 2000.
It says it has started screen sharing, but have you clicked on the slide?
I have clicked. I mean, I can see it on.
Sure. It's in working mode. Make it in a slideshow mode.
How do I do that now? I don't even.
There's an option of slideshow. File, home, next to that.
Sorry?
There is. It's okay.
The screen is again not visible.
Okay, I do share screen, and then I
click on your slide. Yeah.
I just click it. That's it. Can you see it?
It has come. Yes, it has.
It has come. So yeah. So 47 to 91, one period, then another period from 1991 to the current 2023. I'll just try to run through some of the important aspects that our young participants should know. So what are the essential features of development as far as Indian cities are concerned? One, it's a Nehruvian model. I'll try to explain why it's a Nehruvian model, because Nehru was like very instrumental into and one of his favorite imaginations that Corbusier turned into was Chandigarh. I mean, if I have time, I'll just share some of those funny anecdotes about Chandigarh as well. But then there was massive migration in Indian cities. Just imagine, because we had just split between India and Pakistan, and of course, West Pakistan and East Pakistan. Just guess, this is what we need to know here. The total number of refugees, we had 7.3 million registered refugees in 1951. So that means almost 73 lakh. In 19, and some towns like Jalandhar, Ambala, and Delhi, and there where we were able to accommodate. And if you're in Delhi, so remember this, all the nagars that you have, Malviya Nagar, Lajpat Nagar, whatever nagars, the suffix nagar means it's a refugee colony. So all the refugees were, but not all. And so in this period, we had 14 towns we had to build. But what is the status? So we had, imagine, 7.3 million refugees, and how much could we accommodate? This is what this is. Yeah. So how only 4,70,000 refugees we could accommodate. Just imagine, where did the rest go? So most of them squatted, most of them, occupied, and the kind of growth of the city. I just want to point out how the cities grew post 1947. And just look at this figure from 1941 to 51. The cities grew by 41%. It's phenomenal, because we had this large migration taking place, and that's how, of course, 1951, 61, because 41, 51 also covers the 47 period when we had this migration. 51 to 61, again, we have a fairly large growth in the cities. And this is primarily because of major reasons. We had a large rural-urban kind of migration because of distress migration in the countryside. Yeah, so, and new capitals were formed. Oh, wait, where are we? So new capitals were formed. So, you can understand, so the major factors that led to the growth of our towns were demographic, as I told you, economic, because there was economic activity planned. And there was this famous Bombay plan. I don't have time to explain Bombay plan that was conceived in 1940s, 42. And actually we embarked the independence, the post-independence economic development on the basis of Bombay plan. And of course, administrative factors, because there was this huge, and then we had the 1966 Punjab Reorganization Act. So 3 states were carved out, Punjab, Haryana, and Himachal. Of course, we have state capitals coming up. So administrative factors, and then some industrial towns also grew. That's how you can find this growth in the cities taking place. Also, and then by 1971, imagine 112 new towns were built across India. And then we had certain heavy industries. I would explain sometime later when we have a class, why these heavy industries came. There's a very interesting and funny story about how Nehru went to England, to US for transfer of technology, and then they initially didn't transfer that. That's how, and then how did the heavy industries emerge? But then, of course, that also speaks about the new towns coming up. So that's a typical Nehruvian period. When I say typical Nehruvian period, because there was no private capital developing these cities. Just imagine this thing. That's what I want to, the second emphasis I want to lay. First one, ruler-ruled cities, not always been there. The second thing is, the essential characteristics of this period is there's no private capital, because there was no private capital at that time. The total wealth of the large capital holders, the 100 large, were not even 320 crores. You couldn't even construct a steel plant. So how do you develop a city? Forget about doing anything else. So this all was state-led development model. State-led development means state was like extremely instrumental into how did it do? Let me just try to do that. So this is a Nehruvian vision, industrial capitalism, because that is what we copied from the West. I keep it open for our young scholars, for our young participants, whether it was good or bad, because we actually copied this model, the industrial capitalism. And for industrial capitalism, remember, the essential part is that you have to move n number of labor from your countryside to the urban, because that's how you're developing industries. Where do the labor come from? The labor has to migrate from the countryside. And that was considered to be, kind of modern ideology, modernism, and all that stuff. Of course, it has sociological aspects also, but we don't go into those details. So stories of Chandigarh and Nangal I want to share here. Why I want to share, because if I have this figure, yeah, this is a very beautiful image that I always keep with me. This is Nehru Bakra Dam. And this is Bhakra Dam. Imagine this Bhakra Dam. I mean, of course, it ruined my state because this dam came in Himachal Pradesh and we had large submergence of land. But then we were able to take water from Bhakra to Rajasthan, you know, where, and Punjab, which always used to be inundated. Of course, of late now, thanks to urbanization, that we find some flooding is taking place. But then, you know, this flooding stopped because of the canals that we constructed. How did this happen? So this was all part of that Nehruvian vision, self-sufficiency in food grain production. At the same time, also some self-sufficient, self-reliant kind of development model. So when I say this, I go back to the previous slide, you know, stories of Nangal, and I want to mention about the housing question. Just look at these. I mean, I am not able to show the houses here, but you know, why Chandigarh's story? Because when Chandigarh was being built, so Chandigarh was, and as we know, Kabuzier, and this was a dream project of Nehru. So Nehru told Kabuzier that, remember, we are a very poor nation. People have migrated without even, they don't even have clothes, proper clothes, or no? Clothes to, I mean, spare clothes. So just imagine, how are they going to stay in a town that you construct if the town is too costly for them to live in? So how are you going to construct? Just imagine this thing. Not to go into the aesthetics and the beauty how he constructed Chandigarh, you know, by creating those 7 vector roads, etc., etc. That's not the time here. But if you see the building bylaws and plan, he made it essential not to enhance the cost. So everything indigenous was introduced. No steel was allowed in the houses. Earthen bricks that were made in the surroundings. Even downpipes were not allowed. Plastering of the walls was not allowed from outside, so that the cost doesn't escalate. And we know how Chandigarh, what Chandigarh is now. Now a bungalow in Chandigarh costs 20 crore rupees. So imagine Nehru asking that it is going to turn out into a ghost city, turned out to be one of the most beautiful cities of the north. Yeah, so, and why Nangal I want to mention, because I just jumped to this image. Nangal is where Bhakra Dam was constructed. And if you see the workers' colonies, I mean, that's the second concept I want to build in the Nehruvian vision. So, and I visit Nangal very frequently because of various reasons. I still stay in those workers' houses. And imagine, I mean, the workers of the 60s, I'm talking about, 50s and 60s, you have a front yard and you have a backyard. And of course, you have free electricity because the Bhakra was one of the first hydropower projects as well. So the ample electricity that you were generating. But look at some of the basic necessities, you know, that the system was taking care of. That if you're a worker, then the workers' houses, the project is commissioned long back. Still, those workers' houses are worth living. I'm telling you, they're far better than many of our middle-class houses that I find in Delhi. A front yard and a backyard, you know, good lanes and all stuff. So I just wanted to just provoke you to just think about, you know, how things were happening at that time. Okay, so planning was very essential. Planning from top. 1951, 56, we have those 5-year plans, formation of a Ministry of Urban Affairs. Then we have the School of Planning and Architecture was developed, and town and country planning departments, growth of large cities. Look, I'm not trying to fantasize here, you know, the Nehruvian, because there was problem. There was problem with this this whole developmental model. I'll come to that, but at least it did speak about people. It did speak about workers. It did speak about, you know, some kind of inclusive development that we are so obsessed with these days. And we do exactly the reverse. So essentials of post-colonial cities, if you ask me, planning was the key. As I said, state played a key role because there was no one else to play that role. Manufacturing was driving force because, you know, you had the cotton textile mills, you had the fertilizers limited, industrial capitalism. If you have a little bit of, you know, knowledge about how the nuances of political economy works. So it's basically industry that was dominating your, steering the, unlike what the Mughal period, you had trade, commerce, and all that stuff. So it was, so, but then there was this transformation taking place, and this was global, by the way, and we also got hit what we call the transformation from the industrial kind of corridors to the neoliberal model that started in 1990s. So we started witnessing that. Take, for example, in Bombay, that's why I've given this figure, 4,700. So the number of workers, because the factories were getting closed, and Ahmedabad, we were down by 50,000. So this shift was taken. Now, if the factories are closing down in the core of the city, what do you think is going to happen to the workers? Where are they going to stay? And this formal structure is paving way for an informal structure. They're not going to jump off. They're not going to go back to their villages because the villages were pretty bad. The cities were still better than the countryside. So then we find this shift from the core to the peripherals taking place, the peri-urbans getting developed, in the fringes that I said, suburbs and urban sprawls developed. And of course, we have duality in the cities, slums and non-slums. Now it is estimated that almost 40% people in India are living in slums. I mean, just imagine, what does this mean? Just calculate the population. I mean, I think it's more than the population of the United States of America. If not more than, I mean, it's a large number. So yeah, so that's how so Nehruvian model contrasts in cities because it couldn't sustain, and because the old class of propertied elite was still there. So it also was able to capture some of the elite places. Housing was an essential feature, office space, schools, hospitals, and other services. And this merger of small towns, because, the people started moving out. And of course, because, schools and colleges, housing, I've just mentioned how this was also part and parcel of the larger plan of the developing authorities, the development plans. Housing was quite coincident. And just to share a very funny anecdote, because I did this review of the Delhi Master Plan, 2041. So I was going back to the 1951 Master Plan as well. Not that was very radical, it was very progressive. I don't say that. But at least when this Master Plan was being developed in 1951, you have a person going back to the people with the monadi, with a drum, dhol isko bolte, and he was beating that drum in the localities and telling them, look, this is a master plan coming up. If you have to make any suggestions, please come to us, tell us. And that's the first part. The second part is that in that master plan, you said, okay, some houses for high income groups, some houses for middle income groups, some of LIGs, and then of course for Janta flats. In the 2041, it's all gone. They said, no, market is going to provide housing and all that stuff. So yeah, so merger of small towns, as I said, because as the industries were closing down, we were shifting. Just imagine, this is a very startling figure. From 1991 to 2001, we have 221 towns that merged together. And in 1981-91, just 100 towns had merged. So the obvious reasons that I tried to explain. So this is the opening up of economy in 1991. Beyond neoliberal capitalism, this from manufacturing to services, this is a large jargon you don't have to go into. Basically, the shift, Nikita, let me know, because once I get engrossed into that, then there'll be no stopping. Let me know when I have to finish. So, sorry?
10 minutes are left. You asked me to remind after 35 minutes. Right?
Okay. So this transformation 1991, what our young participants must know is that this transformation was taking place at various levels. The first one was that our cities were giving way from manufacturing to services. The manufacturing sector was dwindling just like anything, okay, because of various reasons. Not to go into those reasons right away. And so then when this transformation taking place, before this, I forgot to mention, there's another very interesting study done by Charles Correa. Charles Correa, I don't know how many of you have heard this name, is one of the finest architects this country has produced. And he was heading this urban commission called the National Commission on Urbanization. Now, there's some very interesting facts about the Urban Commission, because in 85-86, when they took over the charge, and I think 88 the report came out. So 10-member urban commission, they still thought that it will be manufacturing that would be the steering, steering urbanization in India. That's one. And so therefore housing and all has to be linked to that. Second part is that they are the ones who coined this. I mean, what we are witnessing now, that cities to be engines of growth. So, this transformation that we are finding here, that cities would be engines of growth. So cities won't be just meant for providing you, say, sewerage facility, water facility, or some utilities, but they will be working as engines of growth. So which means they will be like entrepreneurs. They have to be like an entrepreneur. So to be an entrepreneur, what do you have to do? You have to attract global capital. So that we find mentioned in the Charles Correa version. And then, of course, they say once there is growth, the others are also going to grow. I mean, it's a very interesting report, but of course, it has its own drawbacks. So competitive cities. So cities must be very competitive, attract global capital. How do I make myself competitive? I make myself competitive by loosening some of my laws, allowing my land. So where was the land? The land was with large industries. Manufacturing is going. So this manufacturing land was handed over to the real estate. So we said, okay, real estate was going to come, large giants are going to come, and that's how they're going to construct our houses, etc., etc. And and then this shift was from industrial capitalism to IT-based state role and to big consultants. Now, this is something very interesting that happened. As I mentioned, 51 to 6, and all these development plans that were made were primarily made by some of our very profound architects. I mean, you may agree with them or not, but at least they were quite grounded. Then the role of big consultants came, post-90s, particularly after 2000. They said, you don't know how to run your cities. We will do it for you. So we'll create your plans. And finally, when the JNNURM came in 2007, yeah. So, and then this, PPOs and KPO industries came. Role of municipalities changed. We have the 74th Constitutional Amendment. Actually, Arjun wanted me to explain and dwell a little more on this, the 74th Constitutional Amendment. I'll try to do that. So 74th Constitutional Amendment is because we were not sure how are we going to develop. Because it was what? It was some 50 to 90, 40 years, more than 40 years of our independence. And we were still lacking in some of the basic facilities that we should provide to our people. Clean water, sanitation, other municipal. So then said, let there be, the city should manage their affairs themselves. And therefore, the 74th Constitutional Amendment came because, as we know, urbanization and urban is a state subject. So, and in many states, we saw prior to 1990s, some cities didn't have an elected institution for like years and years together. Okay, so there was this amendment that was brought from the center, and of course, the then government played a very pivotal role. K.C. Sivaramakrishnan, who was instrumental into writing this amendment. I had a chance of being with him in reviewing this amendment, by the way, as a member of the National Task Force. He was chair. I was member of that National Task Force. That was in 2012 when he was alive. What are the basic essentials of this 74th Constitution? First, regular elections to the towns and cities. Number one. Number two, empower the cities. How do you empower the cities? By transferring some of the basic subjects. So under the 12th schedule, there were 18 subjects that were identified, and city planning was quintessential. That city planning has to be transferred to the cities. So which means that all your development plans must be drawn by. Now, how do you do that? Because the cities do not even manage their finances proper. So there's a famous saying called transfer 3 Fs. What are the 3 Fs? Functions, functionaries, and finances. That didn't happen. That's a separate story. So these are the essential part, but actually regular elections, at least some elections started taking place. But what happened was, instead of a holistic city approach, we find, and this project-oriented approach is also there in the National Urban Commission, actually gripped our senses of city development. That's an essential part. Now, impact on built environment, how did it impact? Global expertise on planning and design came in, and that's how we find. I mean, K.T. Ravindran, by the way, explains it in a very fascinating manner. He said what we planners do and what we've been doing post 90s, we take a butter paper and that's how we draw a circle. That's the first circular road. Then we find the circular road is full. Then we draw another circle on that butter paper, and that's how we develop our cities. That's not the way the cities must develop. So global expertise and planning and design. If you see some of the typologies were completely borrowed, like glass was used blatantly in some of the buildings, which we required or not, because going by our tropical requirements, especially in Delhi and other places. And of course, information technology, conception of design, as said, typologies, introduction, that's why I mentioned here. Particular corridors, Mumbai, Pune got the highest share. I don't know whether I'm sharing that slide here. Now, yeah, share of investment. Now, this is something interesting. What I want to share is, now we were told that once you open up, you will have a large chunk of money flowing into your cities because you will be meeting global standards. And if you just see the previous slide that I said, I mean, you know, one of the essential, what was it? So it was what was it? Planning was the key. Not here, not there. Merger of small towns, not here. Attract global capital, competitive cities. So this was one of the essentials, that you have to attract global capital. Did global capital came? Let's now see that. So we have a figure, and then of course there's another addition that I want to make. 60% still in core Delhi came from public sources. Private investment from domestic sources is 24%. That comes to 84%. FDI is a major control, only 16%. That too in major cities like Bangalore. There was hardly any FDI coming to our cities and, you know, developing our core infrastructure. And this actually I got from one source, but there's another source called the World Bank. And the World Bank in a very recent report has stated that it's just 2%. If you see the all India average, just 2% to 3%, we find FDI coming in to core urban infrastructure projects. Rest all is from the center, state, and some of the municipal capital aggregation that takes place in varied forms. So actually it didn't happen. And that's why I said post 90s to now, it's a dead end. We do not know how to go ahead. We are at a dead end. So this is the 74th constitutional amendment. All members of the, I told you, I don't think that this is another slide. You can just get it from the website. Urban planning, including and slum improvement, all this was supposed to be the part of our development model. So JNNURM comes in between. I do not know what is the average age of our participants here, but I guess most of them must be born post 90s. So they don't even have an idea, you know, what I'm talking about. So yeah, so this is the Jawaharlal Nehru National Urban Renewal Mission. So the primary objective was to create economically productive. Now just don't forget this word, economically productive, efficient, no doubt, equitable and responsive cities. Were we equitable, or we went from bad to worse? Let's see that. So main flaw with JNURM, the center's ambition, the name of public-private partnership tries to give greater agency to private corporations than elected bodies. Actually, this was kind of bypassing the elected bodies and more of a project-oriented approach. Despite some of the I would say you know, good elements in JNNURM, it didn't actually create any flutter, and in fact it was a complete failure, and none else then, because I'm writing this book where Ajay Makhan, a former minister, is also you know, a contributor to that, and he I mean very candidly admits, I mean, the complete failure of JNNURM, being the minister. I mean, so I'm so happy that he could say so. Normally these days our leaders say, no, we are the best, and not even recognizing the hard fact.
Well,
so yeah, Nikita.
I think you can wrap it up now so that we
Okay,
can
so yeah, so no, I'll just jump to the smart cities from here. So this is JNNURM. 1 lakh crore was lured, state governments, consultants hired overnight, etc., etc. Now this flagship program comes, the smart city mission, Amrut Swachh Bharat Mission, Prime Minister Awas Yojana, Hriday. Because we know 2014 a new regime turns up, and they say, but they continue the same project approach, and they bring in another you know, kind of acronym called the Smart City Mission. What is a Smart City Mission? With that, I would like to just finish off. The problem with smart city mission is it's like taking over the elected council by the SPV model of governance. So if you're really interested in governance, and I remember the same KC Sivaramakrishnan when we were, of course, after our review, he said, Tikender, you know what is the SPV model of governance under the smart city mission? I said, tell me, sir. He said, it's like writing an obituary of the 74th Amendment that we brought in 1992, 93. So the focus here is on public-private partnership. We know how things are there. And we also know how now the government is also not owning it because it was sheerly exclusive project meant to develop certain areas, meant to just exhibit something very quickly, very rapidly. Unfortunately, that is not the way out. In this process, what has also happened, some of one area which has been severely hit is urban governance. Instead of strengthening decentralized governance, what the 74th Constitutional Amendment lays emphasis on, ward sabhas or some decentralized planning modules, the SCM Smart City Mission completely negates that. So yeah, I think what we now require is, this element we are not even discussing is climate change, because this is impacting our cities just like anything. Urban flooding, I'm sure somebody is doing this research on how urban flooding is linked to the whole business of constructing the smart city mission projects. You find towns and cities which were never flooded in the history, but wherever you have these projects, now you find some kind of flooding taking place. So climate change is a reality. The second thing is, I think, what is important, which I have not mentioned here, is this segregation and gentrification taking place. If you ask me now, there are three important processes taking place. The first one is there's extreme form of informalization. Where and that is part of the economic paradigm that is there, which is leading to huge amount of inequity in the cities between the haves and the have-nots. A new kind of duality where it started from. That's the first thing. The second thing is new kind of gentrification is taking place, where we find gated societies and a new middle class or upper middle class getting gravitated towards that. And the third is what I find also the centralization of the financial resources in the cities. It's a little jargonous for you to understand, but to say that the asset holding capacity of the common people is extremely low. And we have a recent report done by some US scholars, and it's a huge database of 1.5 million called the India Segregation Report. I think it's done for a period of maybe 10 years or so, and where they say how segregated our cities have become, particularly for the two important classes, not the classes, but communities or class, whatever, the Dalits and the Muslims. So we know where we are. Despite all the jargon and all the good words that we've been speaking right from my previous slides, actually we've landed in a quagmire, and I term it as a dead end. And to me, if you have to find a solution from the governance aspect, it has to be extremely democratic, decentralized, where the people own their assets. And at least if you're not able to do that, at least we should start discussing that. How can we do that? And that's what I call reclaiming the urban commons. We have some international experiences. If we get time, we'll discuss that. But I think without reclaiming the urban commons, there's no way ahead for a secure or whatever sustainable SDGs and all the jargon that we're using. That's all, Nikita. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for such an insightful and enlightening session. Now I request the chair, Professor Vibhuti ma'am, to share her remarks.
Yeah. Thank you, Shri Tikender Singh ji. You made such a massive overview, starting from Harappan civilization till the latest, and also the important contours of the urban development policies. My main question is, we created a Ministry of Panchayati Raj institutions for urban and rural local self-government body. What does this ministry do?
This ministry at the central level, or?
Yeah, central level.
So we have this Ministry of Housing, and now we have the Ministry
Urban
of
Affairs also.
Urban Affairs, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs.
Yeah.
Now that's the problem, ma'am, what I find now. They are supposed to mainly emphasize on the policy paradigms. And now what I have seen over the last 1 decade, because I've been watching them very closely, because when I was the deputy mayor in the period from 2012 to 17, I have that first-hand information. As far as policy is concerned, I would say they were more aligned to the same philosophy of A, project-oriented, B, getting large tech consultants, C, also getting large capital-intensive technologies for ameliorating our problems. That was like one of the guiding principles. Having said that, I think this is also then post 2014, as I tried to just explain the smart cities concept and all. There are two important documents that the ministry was contemplating. One is the National Urban Policy Framework. Unfortunately, the government did not own that because it has its own problems. So if you ask me, what they do right now is just to further extend these projects and work with these flagship programs, not creating policy paradigms. I think what the current ministry needs to do is to keep this aspect, and I think a new architecture of finances can be easily drawn, if you ask me honestly speaking, whereby you just empower the cities or the states in a far better manner than what we are doing now. So this and from the top, focus more on the policies. What kind of how do you want to unfold the whole process of urbanization? Unfortunately, ma'am, this is something that we are not witnessing. So, to be very blunt, I can name some of the large tech companies who still have offices in the ministry and who are actually steering this process of urbanization. That's why I say it's a dead end. This is not going to sustain for long. Yeah. Because this is for more appropriation of capital. To me, what is important is how do we democratize it back to the people? And to democratize it back to the people, there is no other way than to democratically decentralize the whole process of urbanization. Samuel Stein is, of course, we have K.T. Ravindran, we have all those good bunch of people, but Samuel Stein is one of the architect planners of US who says, people can plan far better than our planners. We just have to give some bit of nuances, okay? So this new policy paradigm of planning must go back to the people. People should plan for themselves. And thirdly or fourthly, whatever, I think no more butter papers to our planners, what Katie fondly say. There's no time. Who's going to construct a new city, ma'am? Tell me. Look at the way our economy is heading. What we now require is what another friend of mine calls suturing and acupuncture. So, what we require is suturing our cities, providing them some acupuncture so that we are able to sustain for another 10, 20. Otherwise, we're collapsing. That's what I'm saying.
Do you think that the human misery suffered during the pandemic, especially the reverse migration that took place, has shaken our movers and shakers of the country? Are they sensitized?
I do not know, ma'am, who the movers and shakers are. For me, the movers and shakers are always the people. But yeah, if you mean the ruling establishment, I don't think even for a bit have they been, even for a bit, because I do not find any proactive intervention taking place apart from the usuals that everyone was doing across the world. Okay, providing some kind of subsistence, some kind of support system. What else is there? We have this huge demographic dividend. Are we even thinking about the demographic? And it's not going to last for long. It's just a matter of 5-7 years. Then we're going to lose them. Then we are an aging society. I don't think.
Even at the subnational level, you don't see some governments like.
Yeah, ma'am. Yes, Kerala, and this is not me, but this is K.T. Ravindran who pointed out, because he went, I think he's in that some task force or what. He said for the first time we are hearing something. So according to me, there's a major disruption that you require. Kerala is trying to do that disruption by saying that we will not allow large industries to enter our cities. Now that is something you don't hear. Normally what we hear is come large industries and ameliorate our problems. This is what we don't want. because it's in an ecologically fragile. Maybe perhaps they learned these lessons, but I think still they have a long way to go, because they have that architecture. If you know about the people's plan, where 40% of the plan budget goes straight away to. So, but that is also, I would say, not sufficient, because I've been to their cities, Kochi and all. Still the recruitment of a peon in Kochi or of a sanitation worker is not done by the Kochi Municipal Corporation. It's done by the state government. What business does the state government has to do in Kochi Municipal Corporation? So I think they also need to advance further, but still, I mean, I would say there's still better kind of way subnational. Yeah.
Thank you. Very illuminating.
Thank you, sir. I request Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam to share her remarks. Ma'am, you're not
audible.
Okay. Thank you, sir. It's a very wonderful and comprehensive presentation. And you rightly said that there are some sections of the society which are excluded. So when we talk about smart cities, we have to talk about inclusion of various groups like Dalit and marginalized, and also the kind of problems women are facing, because after Nirbhaya, the kind of the discussion which emerged was making more, putting more street lights and all kind of other things. But again, these are not kind of very targeted kind of suggestions, because they have not been able to make changes or to reduce the crime against women. So what do you think should be done? Because many of the women's organizations, they have done research and they have said that earlier we used to have vendors on streets, and they used to at least keep an eye on and at least women can feel safe that okay, there's some vendors sitting there, some people on the street. But now with the changing, when we talk about smart cities, the kind of things they are doing is that removing all vendors, removing all kind of people who were there earlier used to be there on the street. So what do you suggest should be done in this term?
Yeah.
Well, instead of vendors, now we have the super surveillance state, no, with the cameras.
But that's only
that's
after the crime is over. It doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, Shaluji, which town or city do you come from?
So basically, I was living in Delhi only, and right now also in Delhi NCR area only. So in Gurgaon right now I'm based. So Gurgaon is, yeah.
Why I asked this, because there's a 2041 master plan coming up. Did they ever come back to you? I mean, you are that educated, I wouldn't say elite, but that section who knows, I mean, what is happening. So if they haven't visited you, imagine they would have never gone to the common people. So and that's why I said, I do not know, I won't say what needs to be done. What I want to say is the process, how the things have to be done, is to be changed. And the process is that you have to go back to the people. People should decide where you require vending. People should decide. And just search on Google, because I was doing this show called The Urban Agenda. It was on a TV. Every Saturday, my show used to come up. And I still remember 2 episodes being run for, and women's security doesn't just mean streetlights, Shalu. It means far more than that, reclaiming the spaces of the women. So I still remember that remark of one of the participants there in that show. He said, the urban planners do not even know that women exist in the cities. Because the kind of pedestrian paths that they create, the kind of payments that they make. Now we come to Simla under the smart city, they've created some corridors, walking, and all steel. So I was just arguing with this planner. As I said, do you even know that a woman can't even walk on those payments? So I think it's about reclaiming those spaces. So, and the process is, I mean, of course, is there some other process? I would definitely buy that argument. To me, I think the tried, tested process is the people. The people, you have to go back to the people in the entire juggernaut of this planning process. And I was also with Harsh Mandar, I was part of that jury to hear the evictions taking place because of G20. I can tell you the gory stories about women street vending being removed. This is not the desired outcome of this. These are not inclusive cities, by the way. So because you have an act, and just imagine you have a town vending act. You're not even implementing an act. Forget about claiming something else. So I think we just need to reclaim those spaces, and to reclaim these spaces, there are a number of ways how we have to do, through our neighborhoods, through our communities, through whatever groups we form. And there are examples where people have really been able to do some part of their bits, but that is not sufficient. These are like some shining examples, but that doesn't come into the orientation of the policy paradigm. I think that is where we have to just hit the nail.
Sure, sir, I do agree, because we civil society, NGOs and women's organizations and various other organizations, they are doing a lot of work, but in terms of policy level, in terms of the state level, we are not seeing any action. The only action we are seeing is, okay, ab ye Jahangirpuri ka demolish kar do, Faridabad ko demolish kar do. So all these kind of things are happening, but from the state. But yeah, civil society is doing, I think they are doing something. So that is the only thing that I have to say, the state level, something at the policy level, something should be done. And even the Supreme Court and the other courts are also, sometimes they give anti-people kind of judgments, or the laws are anti-people. So that's the situation. Sorry. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. The floor is now open for questions from the audience.
I will ask a question. Yeah, meanwhile.
Okay, Arjun.
So you mentioned about the that people should make that. There globally there has been a lot of practices coming in North America, in Canada, developed countries only, in Sweden, Nordic countries, Sweden, Norway, for remunicipalization of the service.
Yes. Yeah.
How do you see that? And you mentioned about Kerala as Katie sir's experience. How do you say some of our cities, let's say in Northeast or mountain cities, many of the cities are able to do these things? How do you see this going forward as the current policy and scheme things you're seeing as a dead end? How do you see that this should be made, and for local level governance, things should be more empowered, and how remunicipalization can be made, because the other part is the big corporates and big firms they are fighting with?
I think, Arjun, there's a big catch on that, because if you still, the ambit of the municipal utilities is very limited in India. And as you are aware of the fact, there's many reviews that have taken place. Not more than 3 or 4 subjects have been transferred to the municipal governance. Of course, solid waste is universally transferred. And then we have birth and death registration. In some towns, you find transport to be part of the municipal corporation. Some places you find it to be the parastatals running. Likewise, water, likewise, sanitation is of course universally with the people. In the West, the difference, because I know the former mayor of Barcelona, John Claus, he was there with us in Habitat. Of course, he was the ED of Habitat. So there you had this abject surrender of the municipal utilities to the private capital. And that's how, this whole furor about urban commons or remunicipalization slogans also emerged. I think we still have to taste that. We are still we are not sure whether we are going to advance for complete privatization, because it is happening via another route. Take, for example, power, electricity. So power, electricity is not the domain of municipal domain. But then if you ask the larger context, I think there are demands emerging. But the vocabulary is not just remunicipalization. It's something else that's getting generated in India. But as of now, I don't find, because Simla, I can see in another 5 years, 10 years, this demand will emerge, because Simla, the water utility is now being run by a company. Of course, it's a state company, Shimla Jal Nigam. being headed by the chief secretary, but most of the work is outsourced to private players. And I now believe Swiss is coming up. So there, when the people will get the taste of it, people will realize, no, this is not a better way, neither efficient nor, economic wise. So, but I don't think it's really heading too much in the municipal vocabulary or in the municipal domain, because we have not evolved or developed that way, where utilities are supposed to be subservient to the overall municipal governance. They still are not. Yeah.
Sir, in my opinion, we get a lot of comments, also demands from a lot of local organizations, state level, that the big players are not enough. आप भी IMPRI से apply कर दो, ये कर दो, और उनका सर limit है 100 crore tender का, कैसे apply करेंगे? They are not happy. In experience, even practitioners are not very happy with the big corporate. They now see that they have compulsion कि इसको बुलाओ, उसको बुलाओ, मतलब उनको अपना नौकरी करना है, तो बात बने. So there is a different kind of needs, and we can do research and advocacy. But thank you very much, sir, for this enlightening discussion. Nikita, over to you. Lunchtime for today. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir, for enlightening our gathering today. Now I request Professor Vibhuti ma'am to share her closing remarks.
Yeah, I think we had a very, very rewarding session today. We started with the first hand experience of a social activist working in a Ghar Bachao, Ghar Banao, in the housing rights movement. And he also told the ground level problems that they are facing, their success stories of displacement, relocation, and rehabilitation of the community. Also critical reflection on the housing rights that we had. And then the second presentation by our retired DIG, Mr. Singh, Rajiv Ranjan Singh, was about the duty, role of police, the history of police force, and the kind of three tasks which he talked about. One was about the maintenance of law and order. Second one was the intervention at the time of crisis. And third time, that not taking side whenever any conflict situation arises. He also said some of the mind-boggling problems in terms of police reforms that we are facing, in terms of political interference, every politician trying to control the police force, and how it comes in the way of a judicious execution of the task and challenges with the police force is facing. And the third presentation by Mr. Tikender Singh Panwar was also extremely illuminating, and it is also tried to respond to many urban challenges that we have been facing in terms of urban development, the regulation, the whole smart city discourse, and the question of the inequality in the that this whole course of development has created. And he started right from the time of partition to the whole Nehruvian model of development, this whole bubble of treating cities as the engine of growth. And how do we define growth and development? I think the fundamental questions of the mainstream economic thinking and mainstream political trajectory that India has had, I think he has very critically reflected on it and given us major food for thought to all of us. And so many references were also given by all three speakers. I think they will also be very helpful in giving us new insights into the challenges faced by these three important problems in our society, in our economy, and in our society. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. With your permission, we can go for the vote of thanks.
Please go ahead. Yeah.
As we come to the end of Day 18 of Law and Public Policy Youth Fellowship, an online national summer school program, a 2-month online immersive legal awareness and action research certificate training course and internship program, I, Nikita Bhardwaj, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, would like to propose the formal vote of thanks on behalf of IMPRI, New Delhi. We are grateful to our expert for the Day 18 session, Mr. Bilal Khan, Shri Rajiv Ranjan Singh, and Shri Tikender Singh Panwar, for taking out their valuable time and giving us an opportunity to learn from this certificate program. We thank our chair, Professor Vibhuti Patel, and lead advisor, Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam, for convening the session. We thank all of our participants who have raised pertinent questions and actively participated in today's deliberation. We look forward to welcoming you coming Monday, that is 24th July at 11:30 a.m. for our Day 3 of Law and Public Policy Action Research Certificate Training Program by distinguished experts Professor Vibhuti Patel, Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam, and Dr. Simi Mehta. We are grateful if you are watching us later on YouTube or listening to us on our various podcasts or reading our publications. We hope you continue to join in future to our IMPRI #Web Policy Talk and #Web Policy Learning. Wishing you a good day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Tikender sir. Thank you, ma'am.